allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I have no Board of Health or COVID updates. We will go straight into presentations. I have one presentation this evening. This is not a public hearing. This is an opportunity for the town board to hear about EMS districting and to ask questions. It's your opportunity to hear the discussion. If the town does proceed in the direction of a district, we will have a public hearing. I have impressed upon EMS a few times the importance of getting this information out to the public, and so that's why we're here tonight for this. So as we head into 2023, it's important to determine how this community is going to face its EMS issues. In 2022, the 2022 budget, the town had funded $30,000 to EMS to help offset their expenses for EMS services. In January, I and this board added an additional $40,000 to help them get through their fiscal year. Now, the estimates for 2023 funding were between $300,000 to $500,000 for EMS services. I'd refer you to EMS and other experts as to where those factors are coming from with rising costs and what all that amounts to. This amount was just not supportable in the 2023 appropriations budget. And so an EMS district seemed like one possible funding option. It does not change the cost to taxpayers. It only changes the way the money is collected versus an EMS district and the appropriations in the budget. Ticonderoga is not the only municipality in the North Country that's facing this dilemma. The board did not provide funding in the 2023 budget for EMS with the understanding that we would pursue this investigation of an EMS district and at some point, probably in January, determine a proper level of funding that we could give to EMS to get them to some point at which a district would begin. I felt, and I continue to feel, that that was a reasonable investment or obligation, so to speak, to perhaps enable our EMS district to continue to survive. Can't speak for the other board members. They'll certainly share their opinions on that. This is the approach that I shared with EMS. The board also heard input from Lamoille. It should be clear that regardless of what transpires in the future, whether no district is formed or whether there's no appropriations in the budget for EMS, you'll still get a 911 service when you dial 911. It's just going to be a matter of how long it takes them to get there. Now, in late August, I heard some information that was really good in a visit to EMS from their council. And so I wanted the board and the public to hear this information. I think it's really good information. At some point, our town attorney will also be chiming in on what's involved for a district. It's important to know, what this means to the public, what it means to the town in terms of its obligations as a district is to be formed. So as I said, during this effort, I've impressed upon EMS the importance of getting this information out to the public, whether it's social media, news media, or any other method regarding the situation they find themselves in, and frankly, what the town of Ticonderoga finds itself in. And so with that in mind, I've asked EMS to bring their legal counsel today, who gave a really great presentation back in August. Timothy Hannigan, I believe you're in the audience here. Yeah. Oh, there you are, yeah. If you want to come up to the table, Timothy, we appreciate your time and coming to talk to us. You had some great information back in August. I'd like the town board and the public here to hear what you presented back then on the formation of a district. And, if the board has questions about the process, please feel free to jump in.
Sure. Well, good evening, Mr. Supervisor and members of the town board. Thank you for inviting EMS in this evening. In preparation for this meeting, I went through the final assessment roll for this year to get a flavor of what you're looking at tax-wise. The good news for your town council is that you would seem to have a plethora of either sewer districts or water districts or both. So the way you form this is exactly the same way you form those. That's a little bit different than for members of the public, it's much different than forming a fire district, even though fire and EMS would seem more aligned than fire and sewer or fire and water. From soup to nuts, I think assuming you didn't get some sort of opposition or petition brought challenging the establishment of an ambulance district, I think you could probably do it within 90 days. I'd probably build 120 just to be safe. Obviously, as the supervisor indicated, you're looking at, for the year of 2023, a bridge in terms of funding in order to get to the establishment of the district. That would only take effect as of January 1 of the year, because that's when the taxes are levied. So those are kind of some important dates to keep in mind. Whenever this gets authorized by the town board, if it's to be authorized, it only takes effect January 1 after that process occurs. And for future years. One of the nice things about an ambulance district, and the supervisor alluded to it, this town certainly would not be alone in the state or even this region as far as forming it. But one of the nice things that provides is it reserves for the town board the opportunity to appoint a board of ambulance commissioners, which would essentially be like a subcommittee of this board. It's not like a fire district, one fire commissioners that are a separate entity altogether. Those commissioners would be appointed by you. You can have that option, or you can reserve for yourself that authority to basically administer that district and contract with. Obviously, we hope Thai EMS based on their the fact that they're right up the street, but you would be still in charge, even with the ambulance commissioners in place. You would still have the ultimate authority over monies expended for ambulance purposes. With an ambulance district, you would still have a contract with a vendor. Obviously, that would be different if you formed your own service, but with a vendor in place, you still retain, you're not really losing any control, I guess. It wouldn't be much different now. The one nice thing, I think, that ambulance districts provide for the public is a very transparent line item on their tax bill indicating what they're paying for the availability of ambulance service. And that's probably an important thing to know. So how Thai EMS would run under an ambulance district is everybody in town, and the district for your town purposes would be the size of the town, so it's easy to configure. Everybody would pay the same rate in their tax bill for ambulance service availability, all right? And then when you actually, if someone, a user of the service, would be billed through their insurance company, or if there's obviously you're part of, any of the county highways here, if someone who's traveling through here, I know the tourism is pretty significant here, the actual user of the service, or per user fee, would also be billed separately. That's known as revenue recovery. In future years, what Thai EMS would do is say, all right, for the current year, let's say that we recovered $100,000 in ambulance service revenue. What we need, $500,000 to operate the service. So next year's subsidy from the town or this district, we're requesting $400,000. Meaning the gap between the revenue recoveries and the amount that you've the amount that they need to operate that service. It's important to note that Thai EMS is started volunteer, it is volunteer. It's a hybrid model right now. In order to staff, and that's really any place. I know you've seen it countywide, where the county stepped in, providing paramedics through a grant program, and now with their own certificate of need. But the ability to staff ambulance 24/7, particularly during the daytime hours, is statewide, really paid day, with supplementation by volunteers. And that's the model, not just in this town, but elsewhere. So that model and the facts and figures that Renee went over with me, they're pretty much on the mark as far as similarly situated townships and squads that I represent throughout the state. I actually joked with her earlier. I said, if you were crazy, I would tell you. She said, that's not very nice. I said, well, no, I'm talking about the numbers. I'm not talking about anything else. So it looks like the town's getting excellent service for what they're asking for. The supervisor mentioned the budget for the previous year was $30,000 and $40,000, and I mentioned to the Thai's leadership earlier on. I said, listen, if there's anything you can be faulted for, it's for not asking for more earlier, because they cannot sustain an ambulance service on $30,000 or $40 or $70 or $100. It's not. Nobody can run it that inexpensive, particularly with paid staff. I did some rough, back of the napkin math on you're looking at like a cost per household for this. And again, it's something that we would have to have the town assessor very involved with to get exact numbers. Those are information that you would have to put in your notice and present to the public at a public hearing and in the map plan report. But you're probably looking at, my guess, between like $50 and $70 on a household, which is well worth it. I mean, you're paying for that service. If you need 911, then you call and it's there. And the one comment that the supervisor made that I will mildly tease you on is that it's only a matter of how long it gets there, and when it's either, if it was me, I want it there yesterday. If it's my mother, or my sister, or my child, I mean, if somebody went to cardiac arrest here and Tiny Mess being up the street, it would feel like an hour. I mean, because and they're just right there. Really, this is one sector, just like fire, where every second counts, and I think you are fortunate, I think, to have a local option that a lot of places wish they had to look to. So I think you'd be hard pressed, even with other countywide vendors, or if somehow Essex County itself became a vibrant, ambulance transporting agency, you'd be hard pressed to find a local option that's here, that there are people that are in your community and they're dedicated. So that's obviously, contracting with them is far down the road. I think the district stuff is pretty straightforward though. It's set out in the law. I think you're to the extent your council have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, because I've worked in that capacity like that before. But the district model is certainly one that's gaining a lot of traction.
The Board of Commissioners, it could either be this board or a group of people that's appointed to the board. What is the authority of that board or this board over the actual budgeting process?
So the budgeting process, really the authority would be, here's how much money we're going to provide. And here's, we want to look at, part of the benefit of having Board of Fire Commissioners that you have, our Board of Ambulance Commissioners that you appoint 3, 4, 5 people, wherever, and they kind of analyze the ambulance stuff and then say, okay, town board, here's what we've looked at, we've vetted these various issues, we know that they need a rig for this, they've got staffing needs, or they got more volunteers, and based on our review, here's what the appropriate number is. But they've already fleshed out stuff like we're doing now, so it makes your job easier.
So if your fire district, they submit their budget, and that is it, we have no control
Yeah,
over that.
that's different. A fire district is a separate political subdivision entirely. This would still be, this district is like a sewer district. It's still kind of under your umbrella. So if Thai EMS came back and said, we need $2 million on an ambulance this year, so we're just not giving you $2 million. If the fire district said, you're going to levy $2 million, you staple it to the back of yours, levy it, and then send them the check. That's the difference.
So the budget would vary from year to year depending on the revenue that they take in?
Yes, and the way you would credit, when an ambulance entity contracts with a district or town, that those revenues should be credited toward the subsidy provided by that town, because ostensibly under the law, those are charges of the town's ambulance service. So the way that we've controlled for that in the past is with full transparency from the contract vendor in the district saying, hey, we recovered and we would, Ty would make available to you our books, building revenue, anything, say, here's what we got for the previous year. Rather than turn it over and have you pay it back, we'll tell you what we got in this year, and then for next year, just pay us less, our budget amount less that. So you know exactly what was recovered. That money is all being used to subsidize the operation as far as revenue recovery, but then there would be the gap in what they need to make up, because the cost of running the service, or the cost that they recover in billing, which is, I'm not sure many know this, but Medicare and Medicaid, actually, the reimbursement rate, it's more lucrative in terms of mileage than it is actually treating a patient. It's really crazy stuff. And it hasn't been updated in quite some time. So I want to say depending on the level of care needed, a reimbursement is probably about what your primary insurance carrier for health pays for a routine checkup, for an ambulance visit with a transport to a hospital. I mean, the rates are not, they don't self-sustain a rural EMS entity like Thai EMS. So that's where the municipal subsidy, and again, basically every place north of White Plains has some sort of municipal subsidy for their ambulance service.
Will the revenue come back monthly or annually?
So it generally, for patients billed, it generally takes 90 days to recover that. So when the time that the bill is submitted to the time the agency receives payment. But the other thing that's more common in EMS than in other sectors is the uncollected bill. So that's another, you really don't know for about 90 days until you're gonna collect that. So that's part of the reason for kind of letting you know at the end of the calendar year what the previous years were, is that that's allowed basically 9 months of billing to come in and say, okay, here's what we got, here's what we think we'll be able to get in the following year. And you know, obviously if there was a year where it took off, they could explain, hey, we think, you know, there was a horrendous incident, we ran, you know, 10,000 more calls than we normally do, we don't expect that, but you'd get a better feeling and you'd know exactly what that agency is doing with their full transparency to you about revenue recovery. And then the benefit to you is the calls that they're running are actually, you know, decreasing the levy on your taxpayers and your citizens. And the revenue recovery bit is key because I'm particularly here, and you know, the tourists that come here are not paying that availability cost, but they are paying and subsidizing for these residents when they are billed on a per call or as on a user basis.
So,
Hi, I'm
Hi,
Kenny.
how are you?
Now, I didn't catch your name, I'm
Sure,
sorry.
first is Tim, last is Hannigan.
Tim Hannigan. Okay, Tim, thanks for coming in today.
Absolutely.
So I just have a couple of things. On the Board of Commissioners that you're talking about, how involved are they into the day-to-day operations of the EMS? Because you had suggested that it was similar to water and sewer, maybe highway,
Yeah.
maybe police. Those departments, of course, have a full-time paid department head,
Yeah.
right? And then that department head in turn comes into committee meetings,
Mhm.
right, which we have monthly, and give reports, and if they've got expenditures, it comes through to them. So is that how this would work, and would there need to be, I guess I'm trying to get in, is over and above what the present staffing is at EMS, once the town takes it over, does that mean that the EMS board, present board, gets dissolved, and it all falls under now the new Board of Commissioners, and is that going to require a paid staff person from the town?
All right, so a couple questions there, all good ones, and I've heard them before. So the entity EMS would remain exactly the same, whether you form an ambulance district and appoint commissioners, or you form an ambulance district and have no commissioners. The good news for you, the bad news for your potential future commissioners, is that it's usually an uncompensated appointment. So they serve, you pick, generally speaking, the towns find a physician in the area, like a paramedic, somebody with ambulance service or healthcare experience that's, you know, basically willing to do a job for free, kind of, and it's more of a monitoring and then interfacing between that agency and your board on the needs of EMS. And you
like the fire commissioner.
yeah, exactly, except the difference with fire commissioners, they're publicly elected and, as opposed to appointed. So that board of ambulance commissioners would report to you, that they derive their authority from you. It's generally not as busy at all as like highway or sewer where stuff breaks and they're, you know, they're in charge of making the fix and coordinating the repairs. Your vendor, which would be EMS, and their board would still be responsible for all of that. They're kind of like the commissioners for ambulance purposes are more like your middleman or middlemen than an agency head like you have with you know, your highway superintendent or, you know, DPW, somebody like that.
Okay, so I guess further to that, then, how much authority do they have over the day-to-day operations of EMS and in regards to staffing, making sure people have their proper certificates, and if trying to recruit staff, does that all fall to EMS, or does some of that fall back to the commissioners, and what is their authority if they see something that they think is running amiss, or something that should be managed better? Because, you know, some of the issues with any business, the reason they fail is usually due to poor management, right? And so I just wonder how much control the Board of Commissions have over things like that.
So the control would really be derived from the contract that you have with the vendor. So what the commissioners would do is make sure that the terms of whatever contract you have with your vendor are being are being executed properly. Now, generally, do they get, the ambulance service commissioners get involved in the day-to-day operations and staffing and who's gone what? No. Do they pick the color of the rigs? No. They kind of let the operation run. If there's a problem from the operations side, and they either detect it and are told, or the agency says, hey, we need to hire 17 more people, we just had we don't have staff anymore, that's when the commissioners would get involved.
So-
It's not a, it is
The
not.
bottom line, it's not much authority over the operations of Tide EMS, other than overseeing and answering their questions. In regards to their ability to staff, their ability to run their operations effectively, that kind of stuff, they're basically overseeing to make sure that whatever's in their contract is followed through, but they have no actual authority over the day-to-day operations.
Yeah, they'd have the same authority that the town board has, is probably the best way to describe it.
But the EMS would still have the same officers, it would be captain, co-captain, treasurer.
Correct.
That stays as
It
is,
stays-
they would run
Yep.
the operation.
Correct.
And then come back to the commission.
Operations,
Yes.
discipline, procedures, all
Yeah,
that.
and it's all internal to
Everything
that.
stays.
Yeah, just town EMS, yeah, or the vendor, exactly.
Okay, so with that, and I'm gonna carry this one step further, so who then would that continue to handle the billing and collections would still be handled through Tide EMS?
Correct.
Because obviously some of that revenue is supposed to come back to offset the taxes going forward to people, so they would be fully responsible for that and just give the town commissioners, board of commissioners for the Tide EMS a report on that.
Yes.
And so there really wouldn't be much that we could do if we see something that we think they should be billing for and they decide not to, that's still up to them, right? We can't, other than make a suggestion, we couldn't do anything
So
else.
I suppose if you wanted to, this would be the first town that wanted to get in the business of handling EMS billing, accounting for it, and then chasing down bills. And most towns.
I didn't say that, you did.
All right, yeah, so if that happens,
down the bills.
yeah, if that happens,
The question is,
we probably need
But it's a good
staff.
question.
The question is not that we want to,
Yeah.
but how does that work, right? That's the question, right?
Don't we have a billing company that takes care of all
Yes,
that?
yeah. So, yeah, and the billing and the revenue recovery and disclosing what that is was part of my discussions, or my initial discussion with the supervisor, is that's information that we would get from our billing company and provide to you, and say, here's what we got.
Okay, great. And the next question has to do with procurement of things that has to be purchased. Do they need to fall under the same procurement policy that the other departments do? So because it's a public entity, it's public taxes, if they need to go buy a widget, if it's over the procurement amount for the town, do they have to come to the town, get 3 bids, public bids, that kind of stuff? Do they fall under that same process?
No, so Thai EMS is a private not-for-profit corporation, so they would not be subject to any of the general municipal 103 procurement.
So they're basically a contractor to the town.
Yes, that's exactly what they are.
Except they're using taxpayers' money.
Well, yeah, all contractors are basically.
Well, yeah, every contractor, yeah, the analogy for that is, I don't know if you guys.
But there is a difference between the Tide EMS district and the water sewer thing. It's not really a comparison because they have to follow town procurement policies, Tide EMS does not.
And they're
Those are.
And they're town employees.
That's a department of the town, that explanation was offered because that's how this district is formed.
Yeah.
And that's how the law looks at them as far as formation, how they operate is, I agree totally.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So the map planning report has to be done like any other kind of district?
Yep, map plan report, the map's pretty easy because it's a town, I got that one done. Yeah, the plan is, I mean, that would be for your town to decide what, the level of EMS that you want. It's probably one 24/7, ALS unit, or BLS with ALS availability, and then back up on a within 15, 20 minutes. Most towns, most towns are requiring that one unit available. Where you get into, and this is everywhere, but if you where you get multiple calls at once, multiple calls within like 10 minutes, there's got to be some flexibility for the vendor there to tap into mutual aid or to allow, in Thai EMS's case, volunteers to respond and supplement the paid crew that's out the door.
Are there examples out there of other places that have formed districts and how they've gone through the process?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I would encourage you to contact Rich Parity and the town of Marbletown. They're in Ulster County. They were,
Lake George did last year.
Tim, what about liability for, is that insurance still carried by County EMS? Is there, with a district being formed and obviously pulling taxes into the community, does that put any additional potential liability back onto the town if there's a malpractice issue that comes up with the ambulance squad?
it doesn't, what most municipalities do it by contract, and it's one that if you contract with them, I would put in their proposal to you would be to add the town as additional insured arising out of any, acts or alleged acts of negligence committed by them as your vendor. But there's no additional liability as your contract vendor for their work. But just to be safe, I think you add that stuff to cover, that way there's no ambiguity at all should the event somebody sue you arising out of, the treatment or care rendered by EMS transporting or treating a patient.
If they start the district and they go to a referendum and it passes, how long before they get the money? Before we have to, if it passed in June, would we
Yeah.
have to?
You'd have to wait until January 1 to implement the tax.
So it'll be a year of
Yeah.
budget cycle.
The other thing, with respect to so it's not a mandatory referendum for the ambulance district. There doesn't necessarily have to be a public vote. The public vote is forced in the event that somewhat enough percentage of the landowners bring a petition to require a mandatory referendum.
Unless the town board adopts that as a
Unless,
resolution.
correct, yeah, the town board wants to have a public vote on it, you certainly can. But it's, the law requires permissive, or the law says permissive referendum, which is you post the legal notice for 30 days, the clerk provides notice to the county clerk thereafter.
Legally, the only big difference between what you have now and what you have if you form a district is, once you form a district, you are obligated to provide that service, right?
Yeah.
So right now, we would still have a contract with EMS or whoever it may be, that the town board would contract with whoever the provider is, no different than you do right now, right? So it would be, I think the point you made earlier, I agree with it, would show up on the taxes separate, right? So you'll actually see no different than a water or a sewer or fire, whatever it may be, fire protection. But the big commitment difference is, unless that district was ever dissolved, once you form that district, you then legally have to provide that service. So the difference this year of budget where you didn't put that money in, once you form that district, you're not putting that money in, right?
But would it have to be put into the same entity?
No.
No, it could be put into somebody else. Would it have to be a non-for-profit as well, or could it be any entity going forward?
The vendor of your choice.
It could be another town. Like to his point, it could be if the county, for some reason, formed a county EMS, it could be the county. I've negotiated in between, adjoining towns. That was one question I was gonna ask you. Who does your billing?
EMR.
And I haven't worked with them. Because I know in Saratoga County, we went through the issue with multi-med,
Yeah.
where the revenues had to come back to the municipalities.
Yeah,
And on Granted Day, and
yeah.
that whole fiasco last year, the year before. I think it was 20, right?
Yeah,
Medicaid or
we
whatever it
used to
was
use
said,
them a long time ago, but we don't
Yeah.
anymore.
you can't have an intervening biller.
Yeah.
What's the situation here? Does the town have to be the billing entity, or do they hold that certificate?
No, so right now, EMS holds the certificate, and part of the contract would be that they have to maintain it and they have to properly train staff, all that stuff, but if they would hold the certificate, they would handle and you have a third-party biller, so, which is, if you didn't, I would tell you to do that. So if they have a third-party biller that handles all the revenue recovery stuff, pursuit of that, and then reports them, provides them with that funding. And the way to control that with respect to the municipality is to say, this is being used as an offset of the budget or the levy that we need for the coming year.
Elections still stay the same?
Elections,
Like for captain and
oh, nothing, which their bylaws would remain
Strictly
exactly the same, nothing about.
Stays the same.
Yep, they would retain their not-for-profit tax exempt status, it's just another contract member.
I didn't know if the commissioners would have to get into that.
No.
And so down the road, if the town decided at some point in time, if a district is formed, and 2, 3, 4 years, 10 years down the road, decided they don't want a district anymore, can they dissolve that district, and what does that entail?
Easier said than done.
Okay,
It is
so-
possible.
So,
I don't think I've ever seen anybody actually do it.
I haven't heard anybody dissolve an ambulance district, yeah.
Once they're formed,
once you're in, you're in,
Yeah.
right? So it's a long-term decision that is being brought before this town board.
Yeah, you're no longer able to decide whether or not you're giving money, it's just how much money you're giving.
and I think one of the big obstacles.
And, or who you're giving it to, I guess is the fact is, right?
Well, no.
Which vendor, right? I mean,
You
you
can decide.
could pick a different vendor,
It
right?
may be 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, probably I've seen all sorts of
Yep.
durations of contracts. One other topic I see come up, which you guys can talk about, which ends up at the board at some level, hard and soft billing. Might just have you guys have a conversation about that. Does everyone know what that is? Soft billing, you send the bill, hopefully you get paid. That's how I think of it.
Yeah.
Hard billing is, you don't get paid, it goes to a collections attorney in Central Park or
Yeah.
Latham,
Then you have to pay the
and
attorney.
then you start hearing about it because they show up here.
So there's some guidance from the Department of Health and Human Services at the federal level about if the taxpayer is in a municipal service or municipally funded service is the one that hasn't paid their bill, that could be forgiven. Generally, soft billing is illegal and does not exist. Everybody knows exactly what it means.
Yeah.
But
You don't use those words in
yeah,
context.
yeah. No, no, you didn't mean this. So, hard billing means you're actually billing with the expectation of recovery. Soft billing means like, oh, it's, you know. But what, if you're gonna participate in Medicaid billing, you have to bill every patient, treat everybody the same, okay? Soft means you're not really, you know, you have no expectation that's coming back when you send the bill out. Hard means you're gonna get it at all costs. But we have guidance with that, where I think for residents of town, if there was some hardship and they couldn't afford it, that the town would have the authority to say, hey, no, we don't, leave them alone.
And that is a consideration, it's good,
Yeah,
to hear him give you that expectation, because there is, you're gonna face it.
Yep.
Right, you have
Yeah.
a district, we see it monthly at our water sewer meetings, ultimately, somebody's gonna come in and, argue that hardship, because these are, at the end of the day, town revenues.
Yeah.
They may be collecting them, applying budgets and things like that, but that's town money.
Yeah, and the one.
You set the rates.
Yeah. Usually I do it as like a schedule to the agreement, and so where the town says, we're okay with this rate and this, the best way that I've ever explained this to like the general public about what the tax means versus why you're getting a bill after the service is rendered is, I don't know if you rent this facility or if you have like town parks or town pool, but when you go, we actually physically, this is my time, when you go to the town pool, you have to pay to actually get inside the pool, but I've already paid however much thousands in town taxes, and it's a user fee. And that actually helps lessen their tax burden by individuals who actually use the service paying the user fee. And most of the user fee, if there's any insurance involved or Medicare, it's covered by that third-party payer.
Another good analogy is the water district with meters.
There you go.
There's always a base fee,
Yep.
right? But then the users who use more pay more. Similar to this insurance company, somebody's gonna get billed. Everybody pays a base fee for the service to be there.
Yep.
And then as you need it, you get billed.
Did I hear you say, who sets the rates?
Town board does.
Town board.
Legally, yep. It's in town law.
Yeah.
198.
Yeah, 198,
Town
GML
houses.
122B would probably allow you to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Just like any other district. Yeah.
Of course, in an ideal world, if you set a water and sewer rate, it's recovering your fixed costs, right? Where in this situation, you don't know what those revenues are going to be because it all depends on, unfortunately, how many people get ill or need the service, right? And so if that service doesn't need to be provided, which we all hope that it doesn't, then you have very little revenue coming in, and then the taxpayer is covering the entire burden for having an ambulance service available, which I get that. But it also means that it gets very difficult, or much more difficult, to budget from year to year, because now you're budgeting as you would if you were a business, right? Which is cost out, which tend to be relatively fixed, and revenue in, which isn't. And so making that judgment call from year to year means that from time to time, you could be underfunded, right? Because you didn't allocate enough money in your taxes for the previous year, or you don't get enough revenue to cover what you thought you forecasted in your budget. So I see that as being a little tricky from budgeting at the town board point of view.
I'm biting my lower lip over here, because it's exactly what you're gonna go through with the metering requirements for water.
Right.
Right?
Right, until you get to a baseline and know what your fixed
What I would
costs
tell
are.
you is my experience with municipalities that have EMS districts or fire protection districts, right? When you're, a little different with that fire protection, because you actually have a service fee here, but very similar to the water, when you transition from a strict EDU structure, which you have now, but ultimately to a combination, right? A metered district charge always has an EDU, that EDU is the base charge. But to your point, for the first couple of years, until the town experiences what the level of usage is, roughly going to be, we go through that exact scenario where, you budget for this, and there's, as you're saying, there's examples. We can reach out to Lake George, we've got Corinth, there's plenty of municipalities around here that have budgets that you can see. And, there may be a year where the general fund has to loan to a district, no different than you do now, right? And then you make it up. So as you get the experience and data, that stuff shakes itself out.
It's unknown revenue, but it is revenue.
Right.
The fire district.
Well, you-
Fire
they
district-
give you the data, they're doing it now.
No, yeah, it's not as unpredictable.
Right, they're doing it now.
Yeah, we know we got about 700 calls a year.
Yeah.
So we know the revenue, and the Italian has been around a long time, so they know, like, this is about what we get in revenue recovery, such that there won't be in June, we're back here saying, we need $500,000 because we're not running calls. It won't, unfortunately, the ambulance service is pretty steady, the calls are there. But yeah, it will be pretty tight.
That's all part of the map plan report.
Yeah.
How does the town board pick a vendor?
RFPs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
it's
can- you just-
RFQs.
Yeah.
similar process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing different.
Yeah.
You can't just appoint somebody to go through an RFP.
No, no.
You could do that, or
Yeah.
you could do RFP.
It's not obligated.
Yeah.
Just curious.
It's not one of the services that you have to go out to bid
It's
for.
professional service, highly specialized. But to his point, what's your base, that is part of the discussion in the NPR process, is what is your base gonna be? Is it
Yeah.
ALS, is it
Yeah.
BLS, basic life support,
Yeah, right.
advanced?
Yeah.
That's all to be negotiated, because it all has a cost.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I'm talking for you now, but
Yeah.
I'm not saying pro or con of district, just, I've been through it. and
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Usually the people who provide the service have the numbers, they can tell you what it costs for 24/7 ALS, BLS plus ALS availability, and everything in between.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. Sorry, you said anything? Go ahead.
I'm certainly pretty sure I've been here at the turn my contact info, and if any questions come up.
Actually, I did have a question. Would you guys see this coming by petition process or town board driven process?
Town board driven. That's the easier way to do it, for sure. I mean, the other petition one exists, but it's not,
It's not an EMS district.
yeah.
If they don't have any calls, can they shovel snow and stuff?
If you ask, maybe, ask politely.
No, they
Yeah.
did, actually.
Yeah. Not for, it would be a separate charge, yeah. This will be the first time when we have snowplow charges in addition to.
You have union contracts, everything is union. But they don't have your agenda, they're there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to a public hearing. We have a public hearing scheduled tonight for the use of town property. I'll open the public hearing now. I have a few comments. So the town has been dealing with some camping, open fires, and other issues more frequently now than in the past. Public Safety Committee and the Building and Grounds Committee have tried to come to grips with some of these issues and have multiple conversations on how to really handle this. So the town has drafted a local law, this is a draft, for this issue. The board's been provided with a draft from the town attorney. Let me just, a quick summary of what is in this draft. It really just goes on to define what the definitions of camping, hunting, on property, talks about prohibited acts, basically hunting, camping, open fires, things like that. And then it lists exceptions to those prohibited acts when they can occur. And those exceptions vary depending on what the act is. We've had some discussions. Joyce, I know that you had a comment about vehicles on public property.
Yes.
That you wanted to, we might as well discuss it here. We haven't discussed it yet, but you brought it up.
Yeah, we periodically have problems with people, excuse me, driving on the walking trails, particularly in Bicentennial Park. They don't seem to realize it's not. Maybe with the bollards now, they would understand that. But our biggest problem has basically been on the upper trail, where people are using snowmobiles and ATVs and using the walking trail as a driving trail.
So,
And we've had problems throughout all our parks too with snowmobiles. And I'm not talking about the marked trails, I'm talking about unmarked use.
right. So if we add something to the draft that covers basically private vehicles on town property, we'd have to have some sort of exception for like parking lots and
Roads.
yeah.
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 And I realize it's opening a can of worms, but I don't know how else we can deal with it. And the opportunities right now,
Right.
Matt?
You see, I don't know if this belongs in this one, or if it's really covered into the vehicle and traffic thing that we're looking at doing later. Like I said, we would have to have exceptions about people parking in parking lots. I mean, that can be done with language, but I'm not sure which way is the easiest way.
Especially if it's an authorized use of the park, we can expect people to be driving under those circumstances, but
Of course, with any legislative thing like this, it all comes down to enforcement, you know. This one's harder to enforce, like, you know, no parking areas are. An open fire is probably an automatic call to the police and it's taken care of right away. Somebody driving down into Percy Thompson Park there is probably, by the time law enforcement got there, it would be over. Not that that means it shouldn't go into this legislation, just, I don't know.
just a thought.
If we want to pursue that, I have no problems with adding that to the draft, depending on what everyone thinks.
Why would it be any different than what we have now? We have signs up that says no vehicles.
Then when we have this in Bicentennial.
I mean, we could put them up, I mean, it's not gonna, we can put this in the draft, but it's not gonna stop people from,
Yeah, I mean, you,
they're driving right by the signs now.
if you create a town law or town ordinance to not allow people on certain parts of motorized vehicles on certain parts of town property, you're gonna have to sign it anyways, right? You're gonna have to put a sign up. You can't just have a law and then not let people know which things are there. So signs of no motorized vehicles might be the first step, I would think.
Is that true? You have to, Matt, if you have a prohibitive, no vehicles allowed out there, do you have to sign it? Or is it the fact that it's in the law, everyone's supposed to?
Oh, no, you would want to sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's, the signs that we have up in the park now, I mean, it says no vehicles, that's, they can be fined,
I don't know where
arrested.
that rests. I think you just put signs up.
Okay.
I don't have a local law or anything like that. In my head. I don't know, what I'm saying is, I don't know how those signs came into existence.
Well,
Basically,
that's
what's
my
the law
question.
behind it?
So that's my question. Do you need a law behind it to put a sign up? Do you actually have to be able to, or can the town put a sign up that says no motorized vehicles to see if that stops down some of the traffic?
You can put a sign up wherever you want, but it's the enforceability, right?
If you want to enforce it, I think.
Well, I guess the point is, that I don't know if it's really enforceable anyway, it might inhibit people.
Nothing to enforce, it's fine.
Right.
It's It's not as bad as my
It's just a
and
courtesy.
the upper trail right now.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, I'm good putting in this or putting in something else, whatever you want to do. If we want to table this for the next month, we can add this to the draft and come back then, or we can just leave it as is.
Well, I'd like to see this law get into effect, and I think your comment that it may well fit under the vehicles and road use ordinance might be a better place for it, I don't know.
Could we put it in
I don't-
this?
Yeah.
Could we add to this?
They're both local laws, so it wouldn't matter.
I mean, if we adopt this tonight or something.
Oh, you can always add
We
to it.
can add to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we would have to go through another public hearing
Yeah.
to amend the law, okay. So it's just the way it's going to be.
All right, well, I have a resolution in here.
Oh, I'm sorry, to amend it later, yes, if you just tabled it to next month, we would table the public hearing.
Yeah.
Leave it open.
Maybe later.
I'm hearing we're not tabling it, but
I think we go ahead and get it.
Well, I would like to see this law go into effect as written right now.
okay. All right, well, I have it in later in the meeting, so we'll cover that then. Just want to make sure. All right. Any comments from the public on this? All right.
Not a problem, probably anybody else.
Yeah,
Can I comment or ask a question about that?
no, but only if it's on this.
Oh, and then this
Yeah,
one,
this is
okay.
the public hearing just for this.
Okay.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, then I'll close this public hearing. All right, we'll move on to committees reports. Airport committee met on November 1st, and this was reported at the last board meeting. Those minutes were provided last time. There was no meeting in December with the airport committee. I do have just one little update. I've had conversations with the FAA regarding removal of an obstruction in their database, which should be able to get us back to removing the nighttime landing restrictions for the airport. I just submitted something this evening for that. So, as I said, there's no meeting scheduled for December, and we'll move on to buildings and grounds.
Dave, do you have anything to say?
We have a lot of furnace repair and hot water tanks at the armory. But that's, nobody wants to know about that. They're fixed. Costs a lot of money, but they're fixed.
Short and sweet.
We want to know about the tree roll, we want to know why it's not lit up.
Yeah, we should probably mention why the tree's not lit.
Yeah.
Does that come under my domain?
Which they had a short,
You want to do it?
they had a short the other night and blew the box off. And Tanya went running home.
Scared the heck right out of
You
me.
guys want to pass this around? That's what it looks like.
Oh, my gosh.
It's pretty well posted.
So
Well,
Tom, the electrician came down and he rewired it, and Tanya said it worked last night, and then this morning it blew again. So they're coming down tomorrow morning to do this work here for me. So they're gonna start to
there was
repair
a
it.
fire.
It's gotta be a short between, underground, between A and B.
Whose phone is this? My gosh.
It's nuclear survivability.
Anybody want to see that?
You want to see that? It's a
Yeah.
black melted mess.
Yeah.
A black melted mess of what? It's a black melted mess of the
Oh,
actual
blew it out of all.
outlet
Insulation.
outside where the Christmas tree plugs in.
Oh.
That's why it's not lit right now. It kind of blew up and melted.
Oh, my gosh.
Made a lot of noise, it scared the heck out of me because it's right by my
4,000 lights
window.
we put on.
Oh. We're hoping to get it fixed so we can see the tree again.
Yeah. We wouldn't know unless it was supposed to be lit, so. Are you done?
Yep.
Okay. I'm not going to go through all the minutes, but I will talk about the dog park. Thanks to the article in The Sun, we had a lot of people step forward to volunteer to help with the dog park. They include Gail Rafferty, Paul and Rose Manners, and Mark Hulbert. And between all of those people, they're going to be taking care of making sure there's bags there for the dogs, for the dog waste, and making sure the garbage gets out to the street, and sort of policing, just watching to see if there's any problems with certain dog owners or dogs going on there. I do need to take a look down there to see how the signage is. I'm not sure if it doesn't need to be updated. And sometime when the DEC is not involved with the hunting season, I'd like to have them come and take a look at the area, because we have had complaints about disturbing the migratory birds that may be nesting in that area. So I would like some advice as to how the town should be handling that. In regards to the town's responsibility for the dog park, we will be providing the bags and the garbage bags and the mowing, and the rest will be done by the volunteers. Black Point Beach, there's been some problems with vandalism up there. People like to do wheelies on the grass area, and I hope they stop doing it. Town historical signs, for those of you who don't know, we probably have over 36 historical signs in this town. And some of them are in really bad condition. They're rusty and you can't read them and so on and so forth. So something needs to be done about that. It used to be that IP would help with the sandblasting and repainting of the signs, but obviously the mill has changed ownership and we can't count on that service anymore. Bill Dahlbeck, who is the town historian, has been asked to create a list of all these historical markers so we can know exactly what we have and where we have it. Some of the signs are on private property. And then we'll develop a spreadsheet and we'll do a better job maybe of keeping the maintenance going on that. We were lucky to have a volunteer step forward, and it's Brian. I'm sorry, I don't know his last name. Hudan? Hudan, thank you. Brian Hudan helped finish the painting of the shelter for the Lord Howe statue. Excuse me, it's not Lord Howe, it's now Robert Rogers.
Everyone says it's
I know, I've been brainwashed myself. So anyways, the structure has been completely painted, and he lightened the interior because the statue was not showing up very well. And he also donated the paint itself. The exterior color was chosen because it matches the color in the park and makes it much easier for the town to maintain the properties in the future. Our groundskeeper brought up the fact that at the Tractor Supply area, there's a sign and a center median there. And that center median, which is about 4 feet tall, has been an attraction to local tractor trailers and the snowplows and has been damaged many times. And it was his suggestion that maybe we should consider doing something about it. And it was a recommendation of the committee that we take down that structure, leave the sign there, but leave some kind of landscaping at ground level there, and maybe the things will not cause all the problems that they've been causing so far. The skating rink, this is a wonderful topic because all of a sudden our little skating rink has become very popular with donors. We had an anonymous donor who is donating a liner and some expensive accessories which can give us around for the rink has been donated. And Ash Alexander, who has been our attendant for the rink, he received a grant for $4,000 to improve the rink. And then Pride wrote a grant and got $2,000 to purchase loaner skates to be used by people who do not have skates and want to go skating. And in addition, the Charles Woods Foundation gave a grant of $8,000 for rink improvements. So I would say we're going to have a very nice rink by the end of this year once we decide what kind of, not this year, but by next June, once we decide where we should go with that structure. That's $14,000 though in grants. That's really super. We do know that our rink will become very popular with hockey players, and then we have the other people, the families with young children and so on and so forth. So I think we're going to have to look at some kind of time schedule so there's no conflict between who's using the rink and when. And that's it.
Okay.
I think our next meeting is on the third Tuesday, which I think is the 20th.
All right, thanks, Rose. Economic Development Committee met on November 16th. Minutes are attached. Some of the discussions included use of occupancy tax, TRA's progress in finding suitable child care facilities, community development block grant plans by Pride for the coming year, and some of the new business activities that are going on. The next meeting is December 21st. We don't have any word yet on the DRI. That is expected hopefully this month. I have one resolution, and that is a resolution to add Beth Hill as a member of the Economic Development Committee, and I'll ask for some
I move that. Okay, I'll second.
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. know that. I have nothing else there. Move on to highway, and Dave, I know that you had to step out. I'll just cover some of the topics that we had. Paving is completed for the season. I want to thank Highway for their help in removing some of the sidewalk sections for replacement by our contractor. Paving did run late, so we ran out of time to begin some of the sidewalk repair that we were planning on for Mount and some other locations. There were some issues that are identified by the recent NYMAR insurance assessment. Those have been relayed to the highway superintendent. There will not be a meeting scheduled for this month. Continue on in January. David, do you have anything you want to add? Even though you weren't there?
No,
Anything
I
you
think
think?
they say about the boxes, they put the new boxes on this month.
I did not mention that. I mentioned it.
Yeah, go ahead, they're done. We got 2 new aluminum boxes for the small trucks, and the highway department did it themselves. They took them off and replaced them on their own, which they didn't have to, but they did. So they're saving a ton of money.
I have something on
Yeah.
it. I noticed after the one icy snowstorm we've had that there was, the sidewalk plow came out immediately and tried to take care of the problem. But what I noticed on Amherst in particular is every 5 feet there's a pile of salt, and it isn't spreading it evenly. And is there something that can be done?
We'll have to mention it to them, see.
Yeah.
All right. Municipal facility?
We had our regularly scheduled meeting on November 28th. The minutes are on the website, so I won't go through them in detail, just did a couple of high points. So we have been dealing with the Alfondre report, and a matrix that was put together to identify what and what has not been completed on the municipal buildings around town. Did that report, it was done, I don't know how many years ago at this point, trying to see what's left to be outstanding. We have the community building left to evaluate and get in the spreadsheet. Once that's been evaluated, and we will turn that report over to Buildings and Grounds so that they will have a working document to go from on different repairs that need to be done. So that's ongoing. We're still working on the police station. We are going to have a meeting set up with a design build person to come in and give us an idea of what they can provide for us, and identify some costs and things like that. So we're setting up a time for them within the next 30 to 40 days for that to happen. AES has come up with a site plan to put the police station in the highway department facility along with the highway department. That needs some massaging yet based on comments from our group. We hope to get those back, and to follow up on AES is we're going to get them in here at our next meeting, which won't be until the end of January. The December meeting is canceled. Give AES time to finish up their evaluations and get a report to us for then. And our next regular scheduled meeting was going to be the day after Christmas. We didn't figure that was probably a prudent time to have it, so it will be pushed back to the end of January, at which time we should have the evaluation done on the full cost to complete the needed repairs for the highway department, which is extensive. They're going to compare those estimated costs to the cost of a new building, so we will have a comparison on between those two deals. Their site plan should be completed, and if the committee is pleased with the site plan, then we will bring that to the town board for following up on the next steps would be then to get a design firm to actually start designing the police station. And that's really it. There was a number of discussions being had about the Lowe's building and whether that was anything the town wanted to follow up on. We decided that it's probably far too large and exceeds any capacity the town could possibly fill. So at this point in time, we're not going to pursue that. And our thought for the timeline for the new police station, we are going to push and try to be able to get out for at least some preliminary proposals in 2023, and would ideally like to start the groundbreaking late 2023, if not in 2024. So that's kind of the timeline for that. And like I said, the next meeting is going to be held January 23rd at 6:30, and the meeting is adjourned at 19:05. That's all I have on that.
Public safety.
Okay, we met on the 29th, the 29th, public comment. Supervisor Wright states that Linda and Steve Whitford were in his office with a complaint regarding parking near their house. It's obstructing a view when they come out of their driveway. Chief Albert said he will go and look at it. And also Supervisor Wright also states that while Nymark was doing the inspection, they recommended that the children and play sign be removed because it's a liability to the town. Chief Albert read his report. He had approximately 285 calls to service, 40 incident reports, 31 arrests, uniform traffic tickets 48, DWI 2, and accidents investigated 15. He wanted to remind residents that parking ban is in effect. There should be no vehicles parked along the side of the roadway between the hours of 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. Any vehicle parked along the side of the roadway will be subject to be ticketed and towed. Speed trailer is out of service for the winter. And on 10/28, he arrested Justin McMurtry for criminal substance control of a controlled substance. On 11/1, he arrested Chase D. Carson for driving while intoxicated. On 11/1, he arrested Sonia Supernall for assault. On 11/3, he arrested Tom Kuzak for criminal sale of a controlled substance and criminal possession of a controlled substance. 11/7, arrested Michelle Halbert for criminal sale of a controlled substance. Arrested on 11/17, arrested William Tossinger for 2 counts of criminal sale of controlled substance and 2 counts of criminal possession of a controlled substance. On 11/17, while affecting the above arrest, with Tossinger was found to be in possession of and added narcotics and metal knuckles. He was subsequently charged with criminal possession of a controlled substance. Excuse me. The Codes Department had 9 building permits, 2 safety inspections, 1 pass and fail. And that was it for them. That's all I got.
Public Works meetings from November 29th meeting are attended. Discussions on the flat pump station upgrade progress, lead and copper roll. John Bartlett, Planning Committee for recent installation of an additional fire hydrant on Baldwin Road. And Tie Sales provided a very good presentation on water meters. They had 4 resolutions. First is a resolution to increase the building count of 62 Alexandria Avenue, Catherine Costello, the 1 volt EDU water. Motion.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, carried. Resolution to increase the building count of 15 Heather Heights, Scott Cook, the 1 volt EDU water and 1 volt EDU sewer.
I'll move it.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. A resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign the notice of termination for stormwater discharges authorized under the Speedies general permit for construction activities for the Portage Clean Water Main Project. All disturbed areas have achieved final stabilization in accordance with the general permits.
So moved.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign the project completion certificate for Clean Water State Revolving Fund, project number C5-5520-07-00. This is the Portage and Wastewater Treatment Plant project. This is to identify for EFC the substantial completion dates of each portion of the project.
I'll move it.
Second. I do have this one little discussion point here, just for your information. So I inquired as to the punch list that currently exists for this project. I got back information that all the areas that were planned to be seeded and reseeded have been done and mulched. But they'll be reviewed in the spring again, and the establishment of how the grass is growing. Contractor did go back to identify any deficiencies, and so AES will notify the contractor that it is real in the springtime to look at areas that need restoration that are completely settled. The town reserves the right for that, to review the grass establishment from that project in the spring and request the contractor to come back if they need to do some work. So the rest,
We're withholding retainage for that?
what we're doing is holding them through the contract to come back. So the monies will eventually be paid, but we'll have a hook on it to get them back. The punch list items that noted certain structures and valves, boxes were low, we're going to be reviewed with by Derek and Sal for acceptability. AES plans to get that completed by the end of this month. So with that, any comment? Anyone have any other discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. None opposed? That's carried. And that is only half the resolutions on here. I did have on the list a discussion topic. Wayne Taylor came to the committee to request the town board to reinstate a previous town policy of reduced water and sewer rates for properties that were being renovated or were unoccupied. There's some history with this. The town policy years ago was to keep those costs down and the rents more affordable through this reduction. However, over time, the tracking of these properties and discounted rates became an issue. Some people would come up to full capacity again and not inform the town, and they would get, reduced rates for in some cases, many years. Eventually, water meters will kind of solve this, but I'd like to establish a task force to look into investigating the issue with the following goals. One is to evaluate the overall issue and make a recommendation as to feasibility of the proposal, and that would include examination of the last time the town went down this path, what we faced, what were the pros and cons, what lessons did we learn from that, so that we don't have to relearn.
Do we have any idea how many properties are involved in this?
Yeah, no, not specifically, although I will mention the town clerk has got a lot of corporate knowledge on this, and that this task force should probably use that knowledge to.
Is it like 100 properties or 50?
Well, it depends on construction season for the most part, but
It's a lot.
there's a lot of history to doing this and why it was decided not to be done.
It would be good if the task force used that resource as part of the decision process. If their actual approach is feasible and recommended, what we want to do is determine if it would include both properties that are under renovation and are unoccupied, or would it just be one of those. What conditions, under what conditions would they be eligible for this? Develop procedures for in-house tracking and coordination among water, sewer, code enforcement, and the assessor to track these, as well as the development of any kind of documentation, application process between the property owners and the town, including any process that we would have in place for them to sign to return the property back to the normal state and notify the town. Task force would meet at a frequency designated by the leader. Asked Tom if he would take that task force, and I thank him for doing that. So the task force would investigate this and report back to the Public Works Committee and then the town board. I have by a date of February 28th. If that doesn't work, we can discuss an alternate date. I recommend the task force members, as I said, be Tom as leading the effort. Sherry from the Water Sewer Clerk would be part of that team, and then either Derek or Eric, whichever they can spare for the task force to round that team out. So that's how we'll proceed, and whatever you guys find out, just let us know. like I said, use the corporate history that we have here, because you may find some things that play into the decision process there. Next meeting for this committee is the 20th of December at 11 a.m. I just want to note that was moved 1 week earlier and at a special time, just due to adjusting around the holiday. I have nothing else for that, and we'll move to Human Services Youth. Youths.
Seniors,
Yeah, seniors.
I'm not seniors.
What do you got? Did we have anything from youth at all?
No.
Did they meet?
No.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
I was waiting for,
I was whispering over here, I'm sorry.
so the seniors did meet on November 30th at 1 o'clock in the usual place at their facility in the Army. There's not a tremendous amount going on with them. They did give their financial report, as they normally do, and their present ending balance as of the end of November, was $10,566 that they presently have available to them. They are submitting a tree this year into the Festival of Trees at the Hancock House, so they're working on that, or I guess that has been already put up, I think, and it's there, I believe. They are talking about having a Christmas party that they want to have, which will be December 28th at 10 a.m. Just a small get-together at the Armory for any seniors that are interested in that. And then they did have a guest speaker, Joyce Berry, who talked about the use of hands and how people make gestures, and it was more interesting than it sounds. And then I gave a quick report from the town that basically informed them of the EMS potential forming of a district, that we were having a meeting today, and just try to keep them informed a little bit. And that was really it. That's all they have.
Speaking of Festival of Trees, I heard that the town of Ticonderoga tree mysteriously appeared and you were responsible for it.
Yes. And
It won an award.
yeah, it won an award for being it was Christmas around the world, and I couldn't figure out, and I decided, because I love Hawaii, that I would do a tree, Hawaiian tree, and that's what it was.
Did the seniors tell you they all did a CPR class?
They did, yes, that was in a previous meeting, but yeah, they had many of them that came in and did a CPR class, and they did have EMS come
I
in.
think they all did.
Yeah, I don't know how many there were, but
11.
yeah.
Okay, we'll go on to health insurance here. The town has offered 4 health plans over the years, pretty large number considering the size of our municipality. Beginning in 2024, we will reduce down to 2 plans. We're going to be keeping the base plan, the Gold 6 and the Gold 17 plans, and we'll be removing the Platinum and the Bronze plans. This is a little more effective and efficient administration of our plans. It gives the staff and employees and department heads a full year to figure out how they want to move into the next plans. So that was done. Let's see, that's it for health insurance. Contract negotiations, all the labor relations discussions have been completed. Discussions went surprisingly well, and I want to thank the CSA representatives from the town, Brian Benito, Jared Wright, Tim Porter, and Jared French, and the CSCA labor relations specialist, Terry Ghana. PPA rep was Bob Budwick. Town labor relations consultant was Jeff Honeywell. Our HR consultant was Ian Winner. Our health insurance rep was Mark Crawford, and the town's internal HR rep was Rebecca Norton. So I thank them for making this successful. I have 3 resolutions regarding this, and that is to adopt these contracts. First is resolution authorizing supervisor approved memorandum of agreement between the town of Ticonderoga and the United Federation of Police Officers, local number 476, dated November 23, 2022, establishing a new collective bargaining agreement for the period January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2025, Town supervisors authorized to implement the terms of the new collective bargaining agreement as per the memorandum of agreement and execute the new agreement once it is prepared. Motion,
I'll move it.
Second.
discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Resolution authorizing the supervisor to approve the memorandum of agreement between the town of Ticonderoga and CSEA Local 1000, AFS, CME, AFL-CIO, Town of Ticonderoga Water and Sewer Unit, Essex County Local 816, dated November 29, 2022, establishing a new collective bargaining agreement for the period January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2025. Town supervisors authorized to implement the terms of the new collective bargaining agreement as per the memorandum of agreement and execute the new agreement once it is prepared. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor? Opposed, carried. And the final one here, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to approve the memorandum of agreement between the town of Ticonderoga and CSEA Local 1000, AFS, CME, AFL-CIO, Town of Ticonderoga Highway and Transfer Station Unit, Essex County Local 816, dated November 29, 2022, establishing a new collective bargaining agreement for the period January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2025. Town supervisors authorized to implement the terms of the new collective bargaining agreement as per the memorandum of agreement and execute the new agreement once it is prepared.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. All right, cable. Looks like we have two exciting changes this month. Spectrum Northeast LLC has become aware of the notice from the network that MSG Plus rebranded to MSG Sportsnet and MSG Plus 2 rebranded to MSG Sportsnet 2 on the channel lineup serving your community. And the next one is Spectrum Northeast is making its customers aware that Azteca America Network will discontinue programming on December 31st, 2022. Accordingly, Spectrum will cease carriage of Azteca America Network on channel 248, 806, and 880 on the channel lineup, serving your community. And we'll move into financial resolutions. We have quite a few. A resolution authorizing the creation of new accounts. This is for the creation of new project H65, which is the wastewater treatment plant phosphorus removal, AS project number 5052. Those are the new account codes listed there. I will not read those all, but I will make a motion. I will move this.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next one is a resolution authorizing the return to the state comptroller of low-income housing funds of $2,525.60 that were received after the re-levy.
I'll move that.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. A resolution authorizing the purchase of a cab and chassis truck, a 2024 and 2106 plus conventional chassis for highway in the amount not to exceed $135,000 with funds coming from fund balance.
I'll move it.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. And with that, a resolution authorizing the creation of a purchase order for purchase of a cab and chassis truck, 2024 and 2106 plus conventional chassis for highway in the amount of $135,000.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next one, it's a long one. This is a resolution authorizing the following budget transfers, and this is to transfer funds to cover increased costs and under budgeted accounts. From Justice, $324.54, $321.78 going to overtime, $2.76 for office supplies. Animal control rabies, in the amount of $259.50, going to animal control general supplies. Town Board Education and Training in the amount of $1,999.27, going to airport credit card fees in the amount of $572.42. Town clerk training, $38.89. Town clerk retirement, $437.37. garage heating oil, $855.03, safety inspection legal service in the amount of $70, $19.49 for central storeroom, and $6.07 for cemetery repair. From general engineer, the amount of $1,680 to general town attorney. Justice clerk part-time, the amount of $21,052.49. We have $11,636, that's something 40 going to garage, diesel and gasoline. $9,249.19 going to National Grid. $82.68 going to police copier. $84.22 going to safety inspection general. From supervisor professional contracting, the amount of $7,624.82, with $3,942.26 going to building and heating, $2,688.74 going to cleaning supplies, $680.64 going to hospital medical, $210.27 going to copier, $76.56 going to refuse, and $26.77 going to life insurance. Police towing, $1,000. Police education and training, $2,749.40. Police medical buyout, $2,896. From dog rabies control, $1,065. From dog control parks repair, $1,195.61. And going into police medical insurance in the amount of $8,906.01. Safety inspection clerk in the amount of $5,149.32. Going into central processing in the amount of $3,563.23. Refuse and garbage in the amount of $1,228.80. $339.40 going to the hospital. $17.89 going to central communications. From supervisor mileage in the amount of $424.99 going into airport buildings repair and maintenance. From supervisor meals in the amount of $122.50 going to joint planning board general attorney. And the next group, $7,060.89 going to snow removal highway overtime into highway medical insurance. And from sewer district uniform allowance in the amount of $500 going into sewer incentive. $279.90 going from water education and training into water overtime. And $24.39 going from unemployment insurance into life insurance using transfer funds for other budget account. For all that, I need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, would you repeat that?
No, Mr. Cunningham. Next one, a resolution authorizing the following budget adjustments. This is the funding accounts by the general fund balance to cover increased costs, amount of $2,525.60. And funding account by the water fund balance to cover increased cost. For debt service, the amount of $920.81. And funding the account by highway fund balance to purchase the cab and chassis and cover increased costs. Highway machinery equipment, the amount of $135,000. General repairs and road materials, the amount of $65,375.95. And machinery equipment, the amount of $182,960.
I'll move it.
Thank you very much.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, carried. Resolution authorizing the following interfund transfer. First group is to transfer funds from the general to the Eagle Lake project in the amount of $696.52. Next group is to fund the wastewater treatment phosphorus removal project with $1,436.75 coming from sewer fund balance into the project. And any motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. A resolution authorizing the following interfund loans. This is to transfer funds from highway to Veterans Road Culvert Project until funding is received in the amount of $181,956.69 from highway into the project. To transfer funds from Central Water to lead service line replacement until funding is received in the amount of $117,821.36 from Central Water to the project. To transfer funds from general to airport apron project until funding is received in the amount of $563.98 from general. To transfer funds from general to the airport pavement project until funding is received in the amount of $6,515.04. To transfer funds from the general to the airport apron project until funding is received in the amount of $8,733.85. And finally, to transfer the funding EPG project by Sewer District 5, fund balance to project until funding is received, and that is the amount of $535.56. Motion.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, carried. I have one last minute, one for finance. This was the resolution to increase the O&M for Delano Point Sewer from Sewer District 7 by $37.22 a quarter for the year 2023. This is to pay back the funds that were borrowed from Central Sewer 5. This is for 1 year only.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Appreciate that. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. None opposed. Okay, last resolutions that we have here. A resolution authorizing the supervisor to approve the NFP Property and Casualty Services Incorporated Property Management Proposal for the period 1/1/2023 to 1/1/2024. This is our liability insurance for the year.
I'll move it.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, carried. A resolution to schedule a public hearing for January 12th, 2023 at 6 p.m. regarding the proposed adoption of a local law providing for prior written notification of defects and obstructions on town highways, bridges, streets, sidewalks, crosswalks, and culverts in the town of Ticonderoga.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. A resolution to schedule a public hearing for January 12th, 2023 at 6 p.m. regarding the proposed local law repealing local law 3/2002, titled "The Local Law Providing for Written Notification of Defects and Obstructions on Town Highways, Bridges, Streets, Sidewalks, Crosswalks, and Culverts in the town of Ticonderoga."
I'll move it.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, carried. A resolution to schedule a public hearing for January 12th, 2023, not 2023, we're not waiting that long, at 6 p.m. regarding the town of Ticonderoga's application to Restore New York on behalf of the Ticonderoga Revitalization Alliance. I'll move that.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, carried. A resolution goes with this. A resolution to advertise for a public hearing on January 12th, 2023 for 3 consecutive weeks regarding the Restore New York application. No,
It's to advertise.
this is the advertising.
Yeah, we need to.
Resolution to
publish
advertise for a public hearing, yeah, I had it right. On January 12th, 2023 for 3 consecutive weeks regarding the Restore New York application on behalf of the Ticonderoga Revitalization Alliance. You have the final.
No, that's
Perfect,
for,
right.
it's to authorize me to advertise for 3 consecutive weeks, the assessment
Okay,
thing for the Restore New York.
okay, you have the resolution.
Yep.
Good. Someone move, I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, carried. And then the last part of this, for Restore New York, is a resolution affirming that the 108 Montcalm Street Restore New York proposed project is consistent with Ticonderoga's local revitalization plan, that the proposed financing is appropriate for this specific project, that the project facilitates effective and efficient use of existing and future public resources so as to promote both economic development and preservation of community resources, and the project develops and enhances infrastructure and other facilities in a manner that will attract, create, and sustain employment opportunities for applicable. I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, carried.
What's the amount of that grant? For the one for?
There's 1.3
3.
million. Thank you. Next one is a resolution adopting local law, amending local law 1 of 2021, regulating the use of town-owned real property. This is what we discussed earlier.
I'll move it.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, carried. resolution authorizing the supervisor to accept the terms of an easement for Ticonderoga Solar upon final review of the town attorney. We still have some work to do on that.
I'll move that.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. A resolution to schedule the organizational meeting for January 5th, 2023 at 9 a.m. I said we'll check your calendars. and get rid of it. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. A resolution to accept the minutes of the November 10, 2022 regular town board meeting, November 17, 2022 finance meeting, November 29, 2022 special town board meeting.
I'll move it.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution to pay the abstract.
So moved.
Second. Go ahead, Joyce.
Okay, Joyce, you got it. Lucky you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution to accept the supervisor's report as submitted.
I'll move it.
Go ahead, Dave. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so carried. Ryan, do you have anything?
We advertised for our skating rink director, and Ash did ask to be our skating rink director again, so we can appoint him for the 22 and 23 season.
Didn't we appoint him last time?
Did we?
Yes, we did. Because I told him it.
Yes, at the finance
I
meeting.
told him in the place we went to.
Yep, I actually emailed him back too. Never mind, I have nothing.
Is it Ash with an E?
Nothing.
Is his name spelled Ash with an E?
No.
You know,
Just Ash, okay. Just-
Matt, do you have anything?
No, just that property at 130 the Portage,
Yeah.
something we can consider over the next month, the town board has been contemplating what to do with that property. Just like taking a step back, the town acquired that from the county, and the county got a tax sale. And it was used, I think, as staging the Portage project there, and then I think the idea was always that the town would seek proposals from anybody interested in buying it, what they wanted to do to develop it, with the idea that it be developed. So I roughed out an RFP along those notes, but we can discuss it and maybe take it up to January.
Okay. Yeah, I know you wrote the report. I would like to see in the future that we sell it, but we have some sort of provisions on how it's developed, so it increases the capability of housing in the town, which is sorely lost right now. All right, if there's nothing else, then we will go into public comment. Not yet,
Thank you.
we tried earlier.
I know. Okay, I just wanted to know what is the current feeling from the town board about the Lake Property Owners Association's request for the radar speed sign on Route 74? Where are you with that?
I'm trying to remember where the committee was on that. I had no problem with it. They were gonna pay for the signs. I think we were looking into, so they were looking into whether the signs could go on the road or not. I mean, that's a town road, but that's a county road?
With the DOT,
State road,
right.
yeah. So,
We're up there now, they're up on,
Right.
Water Drive, but they
By
don't do
choices.
anything, people slow down, and there's no place for anybody to get pulled over. And they don't go down the road further down towards,
We've got to find a place, that's a discussion with the DOT.
yeah, the town wasn't opposed to that, but I think
No.
the things that they had to work out with the state.
Okay, was the town interested in sharing the cost of the signs?
Not when I heard that they were gonna pay for them. But, I mean, that's something we could talk about, but I thought that they were funding them,
Okay,
from what I was told.
all right. And then, another question. For people for whom you've given approval to, for a better term, opt out of being a part of a water district?
There's a better term.
Okay,
It's not opt out.
okay, disconnect from, or, if a water district is formed, are those people under any obligation for O&M costs?
At this time, there's no plan by the town that there's gonna be a district formed. It's too expensive.
Okay, so you're forming a district just for the lower Chilson?
No, we are not forming a district. What the town is looking at right now is examining which property owners have requested some sort of help versus those who have said they're fine, they're on their own. For those who have requested help, because there's not going to be any kind of municipal district form there, the help comes from the town beating the bushes for state and federal monies to help pay for private wells. We've identified all the parcels in that area. We've identified which ones are certainly put in a well, which ones are well capable, which ones are possibly well capable depending upon their setbacks and some other things, whether they have wetlands there and things like that. And the town is preparing packages, should be coming out pretty soon, to those individual property owners that are tailored to them, that has information on setbacks, contacts for drilling companies, average prices for drilling. So the plan right now is, like I said, for the town to try and get state and federal money to help privately install wells in those particular properties.
Now, okay, so that leaves two questions.
Okay.
The town received, was it 8.3 million in grant money?
Yeah, well, it was like 3 million in grants and the rest was in zero interest financing.
Okay.
That was for that specific project of hauling water from the well up the hill. It can't be used for anything else.
Okay. So what is the proposed Chilson Water District users? There's 15 addresses listed there.
The what? I'm not familiar with what.
It's on the district formation summary site.
I'm not familiar with what you're.
It's on the town website.
And it says what?
Then it says proposed Chilson Water District users, and there's a list of 15 people. It starts with Peter Reels, Stephen Thompson, Dennis Town. There's 15, and it looks like they're mostly on Middle or Old Chilson Road. So there's no proposal even for a water district for them at this point.
The only other things we've discussed is possibly for the, this is like a handful, wasn't it a handful of properties that were just outside the district? It was possible to maybe incorporate them into the district, but I don't know if it included all of those. I'd have to go back and look and see what you're referring to.
Okay, do you want me to show you?
No, that's
No,
not.
okay.
No.
All right. Because it looks like something about, the town of Ty faces a $5.6 million mandated project. And there's no date on this.
I'm thinking that's gotta be dated.
Yeah, I don't see, there's no date on the two documents that I'm looking at. But it said, talked about a $5.6 million mandated project, and that the town could benefit if properties involved here were to form a district, and it does list 15 properties.
Okay.
Old Chilson Road. So I
No, I'd
didn't
have to
know
go
if
back
you
and look at
decided
that.
to do something just for those 15 to incorporate.
That's not part of our current plan, no.
It is not.
So that, I'm thinking that must be dated. I'd have to go look at it.
There is no date on the document, so I'm just curious about if that's something that had been added.
It could have been there for a while, I don't know.
So what is the current plan for Chilson Eagle Lake residents who have not submitted request to be taken off town water? What is happening?
For those who haven't responded, our town's plan is to get with them and find out what they want to do one way or the other. I encourage people to send back the surveys that we sent, but right now we're at about 50% of what we sent out, we got back.
Okay, and how recent was that survey sent?
I don't know which one.
The most recent.
Most recent, several months ago. And that was the one who, that was the one where we sent to the people who had already told us no. We were confirming no with them, saying, okay, we heard you say no. If that's the case, we gave them some additional information that was just be aware that there's setback requirements and things like that that you should be aware of before you make your final decision. And then for the people who did want help,
So did I hear you say correctly that you could use funds for private wells for some people? Or did I, no, did I miss?
Let me put it this way, we can't use municipal funds
Okay,
for those areas because they're not in a district. If we got federal funds from, or state funds given to us, we could use those monies to fund private wells.
okay.
That would be people who can support a well by themselves, or maybe two or three, or up to 4 people that could share a well,
Mhm.
things like that.
Okay. And can I go back to, or was that over about the,
Yeah, I want to get to some other people, but you can kind of be brief.
okay, so when they were talking about the EMS, and you said it includes the town, and once, if you do form that EMS district, will that include Chilson and Eagle Lake?
Yeah, they're in town. Yeah.
Okay, so that, and once it's formed, it cannot be cut off?
Well, I think what you heard, it could be, but it's an ugly process from what I'm gathering.
The water thing has been a very ugly process, and people cut
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
Okay, so, has the town looked into, or maybe, they are self-contained, but where do those EMS and paramedics, I mean, where do they get their training? Is the town obligated to provide any of the training for the county?
The training's regulated by, like, the state and county.
Okay, so if you hire a paid person, or if a paid person is hired to be on that EMS squad, is that person covered under, I mean, is it any part of the town's obligation to pay for their training then, if they're a paid person?
No.
Not at all?
As we said, they're basically, the vendor is basically a contracted entity.
Okay,
They're responsible for, like anything else, take care of that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I probably should have asked this a long time ago, and I didn't.
Um,
Is there any, when you want to drill a well, we just hired a well driller, is there any permits or anything we're supposed to get? Is there any problem?
and that's part of the information that we're sending. There may be, depending upon what your setbacks are regarding wetlands or
Septic.
or septic.
So we just contact the building and code officer and have him look or whatever?
based on-
Yeah, I'm not sure what all the details are. That's some of the stuff that we're gonna be sending out. For some of the permitting setbacks, you might be through the Department of Health, State Department of Health, DOH. And the town's certainly willing to help people figure out how to write those things. We can't do it for you, but certainly sit down and help you. Does that answer your question?
It's more or less.
I know it's kind of.
Second question.
The real answer is maybe, right?
Okay.
You may, depending on your property status and location and kind of where you are, that permits may be required. I think it would be prudent to reach out to Department of Health, different permitting agencies, including maybe the APA. I don't know if they have any jurisdiction or not, but they have its wetlands, but
Yeah, and once you get the packages, like I said, they're tailored for each property, so, if you're
What
like,
is it, well, again, the well driller,
Yes.
would he
he should
should
be
know who
appointed,
to
right?
contact and
yeah, there'll be a list of potential capable drillers, and it will be up to the property owners to contact them, to set up some sort of contract with them for a well. I will say that as we get later into this process, and it's really up to the property owners as to when they want to, step forward in that, but it could get kind of busy once the drillers start getting a bunch of requests for activity contracts. I can't tell you when a good time to jump into that is, I just don't know. Yes?
My question is, could someone please provide me with the status of the renegotiation of the consent decree? As it was stated last board meeting, the attorney said that it was a renegotiable agreement. I'm just wondering, there's over 700 people in this town that are wondering the same thing, as what the status is.
All parties agree, that's what.
Excuse me.
Basically, the decree was done to avoid a violation. The Department of Justice never said that we couldn't use gooseneck water. What they said is you have to comply. You either comply by abandoning gooseneck, or you bring it into compliance. So the town could certainly reconnect with the Department of Justice, but they're gonna still ask us what our compliance plan is. And that compliance plan slips right back to where we are today.
I didn't ask for an explanation, I asked what the
Well, I'm giving
progress,
you the answer.
progress is with renegotiating that consent
Yeah,
decree.
there's no sense in sending anything back to the
I
Department of
didn't
Justice.
ask you if there was sense.
Well, if you'll stop interrupting me, I will complete my thought here. There's no sense in completing this by sending another request to the Department of Justice for reconsideration, because they're gonna ask us what our plan is. And that plan remains unchanged. It's unviable from a financial standpoint
Okay, that's
to
all.
go any
what-
further.
you
So
said
that
there
is,
no
that
plan.
is the status. Yes.
So there's multiple plans and there's multiple options, because in that consent decree, it said you have to provide filtration, right, but you don't have. And hot topic these days are toilets, which are complimentary treatment systems, which would be a lot cheaper than the proposed $30–40 million, whatever it was, to fix gooseneck.
And we have been over and over and over this.
I think it's finally time to come to some type of agreement with the people. You're saying, no, 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 and the people are saying, we don't want this water. It's causing all these problems. Not only is it causing all these problems, you're creating more problems. My next question is, do you have a plan to treat the salt that's going into the wastewater treatment plant that is going, therefore, into the Lachute River, into Lake Champlain, which is a federal waterway?
The salt from,
People putting salt tablets to soften that hard water. Does the town have a plan for that?
I'm not familiar with what the wastewater treatment plant has right now for the treatment of salt.
There is no,
There is none. And you're allowing salt to go into a river, to go into a
The
federal
wastewater
waterway?
treatment plant is inspected constantly for what it's putting into the water.
Do you know the state of Vermont doesn't know you're doing that?
I don't worry about the state of Vermont.
You should.
I'm not involved in their legislative affairs.
You shouldn't, because they want to know why Ticonderoga is allowing that.
Well, they
You
never
know
asked.
how?
They
you
may,
know how
they may
know?
want that, they have not contacted the town of Ticonderoga.
I have been contacting everyone in the surrounding
They have
area.
not contacted the town of Ticonderoga. No one in
It's
Vermont.
a federal waterway.
Yep.
Unfortunately, when you put salt in fresh water, we know what happens to the habitat. So what I'm getting tonight is you have no plan. For either,
What I'm saying is that the water that goes into Lachute is treated at the wastewater plant, and it has to pass inspection for what is going out of that plant.
and when was the last time it was inspected?
It's inspected constantly.
No, when was the last time?
I don't know what the last date was. If you want to ask the town clerk to get that information for me, she'll be glad to get it.
Tanya, can you get that for me tomorrow when I'm here, please?
Fill out a form. Anyone?
Yeah.
Okay, we want you to make an effort. She talked about this, and you said, what's the point? We want you to make an effort in looking into the renegotiation.
We're not going to do it.
Okay, well, that's fine, that's fine. As you're saying right now to everybody.
We're not going to do it because we're going to be right back to where we are right now.
You don't know
The
that.
Department of
unless you
Justice,
negotiate.
the Department of Justice is going to say, show us how you're going to comply.
So we put together a compliance program.
We've already done a project. It's untenable from a financial standpoint.
Okay. All right.
We're not going to discuss that anymore.
The only thing we can do is get an attorney to contact you. It's not a big deal.
You go and do whatever you feel is
We're
appropriate.
going to. I'd like to get my notes in here though to you guys, okay? When you're talking about the EMS here, now you're obviously going to see a tax increase to the people somewhere on the road, correct?
Whether through appropriations or a district, or else if nothing's done, you won't see anything.
Right. But you just said, we're probably most likely going to see a tax increase of some kind because someone has to support this, correct?
If there's
It's
going to be a
not
surface.
necessarily true.
If there's
Tiny
going to
EMS
be.
doesn't have to exist.
Right, but I'm just saying, somewhere along the line, some money's going to come out somewhere, okay? And if you give them that
No,
money, it
only
comes out of our
if,
budget.
only if there's an EMS service.
Well, we're planning on having a service, correct?
That's not, did you not hear what he just said?
Yeah, I did hear what he said.
Well, then why are you asking me that question?
I want to hear an answer from you.
You want me to repeat what he said?
Yeah.
Okay, there's not necessarily gonna be a tax increase if the decision is made not to fund EMS.
What did I miss here? Not to fund?
I'm not
If
quite
you
sure,
do
Frank.
fund EMS, if we decide to do it, it should be a referendum. And if you do fund them, it is gonna be a tax increase, right? No, Mark, if you do fund them, there's gonna be a tax increase.
Yes,
Oh,
and
that's
if we
my answer.
don't, there won't.
Right, that's my answer.
It's a pretty simple answer, Frank.
Yeah, it is. If you fund them, it's gonna be a tax increase.
If we don't, there won't.
Budgets are put together based on the previous year's spending and projections, and projections for the upcoming year, correct?
Partially, yes.
Yeah, but you probably did a lot, I'm sure everybody worked on the budgets, but you probably got a lot more into it because you got more hands-on into it, because you're dealing with the people and all this
You
other
have a
stuff. Is that
question?
correct? Yeah, I've got a question. Okay? So you went ahead and you increased the budget, which is going to increase spending, which turned around and triggered the increase in the assessments, more money from the taxpayers, and
The
property
budget,
taxes.
the budget doesn't increase the assessments.
No, but the assessments were increased, and we're going to get an increase in our taxes based on the assessments, correct?
That could happen, that doesn't necessarily happen. You can ask the assessor that, and she'll tell you that.
Well, you know what's gonna happen. You know what's gonna happen. All right. So the property taxes are gonna go up after the first of the year because of the new budget and everything, correct?
Some people they may, some people they may not.
Taxes are gonna go up.
Can I be one that goes down?
He just
So,
seems to have-
I guess what I'm trying to get to is this. The school taxes have already gone up, okay? The budget increased because of spending and projected spending that you put together.
I can't control school taxes. You do know that, right?
Water, yeah, well, listen, I know how the school
You do
taxes
know that
work.
the town does not control the school.
I do. They
you
submit
don't
their
seem to know
budget,
that.
Mark, they submit their budget, you guys review it, you see if it's feasible and all that stuff. There is
No, the town does
negotiations.
not review the school budget. You're incorrect.
There are negotiations
Not
involved.
between the town of Ticonderoga and the Ticonderoga Central School District.
They tell you what they need, you know what?
No, they do
No,
not.
I'm
They
not
do
gonna-
not tell us what
Mark,
we need. You
not
are
gonna get
so
into
wrong
minutia.
with that.
I'm trying to get to a point with you.
Well, I don't know what it is, but right, your
My
point
point
right
is
now
gonna
is
be
based
this.
upon faulty
Water and
data.
sewer's gone up, property taxes are going up ever since you've been in here. We're gonna look at, okay, the EMS possibly going up, correct? Okay, I don't believe that you guys and gals did enough to look at cost reductions and cost
Okay, you said that
savings.
last time, we're not gonna repeat it.
Yeah. Now, you are aware that the county is going to, the taxes are gonna be increased, and you're aware that 16 supervisors are getting an $8,000 a year pay increase,
I'm
correct?
aware of that,
And you're getting an $8,000.
yeah.
Okay, you're aware of that. Everybody needs to be aware of that.
Is there something special about it?
Yeah, well, no, you said you took a cost reduction, you didn't. Okay? So
All right.
I have a question for you.
You have one more question and then
I
we're gonna
do.
move on.
I do have one more question for you, Mark. Taxes are going up, everything's happening since you've been here.
What is
Why
your
are you
question?
here, Mark? Why are
All
you here?
right, Nick, who else has a question?
Answer the question, Mark. Why are you here? You're not working
I'm
for
not
the
gonna-
people, you're
I'm
not
not gonna
reducing
s-
costs, you're increasing the budget. Why are you here?
He was elected.
Why are you still here? Because you're not helping the people. You're increasing the taxes. You're not working hard enough to get them down. These people are doing their paychecks.
Your explanation of helping the people varies greatly different. from
It
mine.
sure does, because I'm in it for the people and you're not.
Yes, I've heard that.
You're
in it
never
for
in
the
it for the people.
Yes, I've heard that. We've
So-
all heard that. That's all we ever hear from.
I can
So
tell you,
just tell us why
like,
you're here,
increase
Mark.
in water, and increase in school taxes, increase in property
I do not
taxes.
Since you've been
control
here, Mark.
school taxes.
I'm saying all the taxes combined. We have increased school taxes, our water's going up, our property taxes are going up.
That usually happens with
County
inflation
taxes
every
are
year.
going
across
up.
the
Don't blame
board.
inflation.
No, it's based on spending and budget.
There
The
you go.
budget drives what the tax rate is.
Yep.
The assessor does the assessment to apply the tax levy or
Yep.
the mill rate, which you would know, Matt, the mill rate
Yep.
to it to cover what is in the budget. So by you increasing that budget, increases our taxes.
I'm familiar with how the process works. I
And
appreciate your input.
For 2% to go up as high as you did, absolutely ridiculous.
This is what we got from you, zero.
Thank you, Frank.
Zero.
As usual, your input is very valuable.
It is, and it's very good for the
Nicole,
people.
yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment to the gentleman who was concerned about well drilling and permitting, that any reputable company that you hire hire will take care of all the permitting for you. If you chose to try to do that drilling yourself, you would need to go through Dave and get the permitting yourself. And if you needed assistance navigating that process, Pride would be happy to help you with that, just as technical assistance and advice. But we work with multiple well drilling companies in Ticonderoga and throughout this area. You will not personally be responsible for getting those permits. The company you hire will navigate that process for you. Not that it makes it any less stressful or upsetting for you. I'm just saying that is one piece that you don't need to necessarily worry about. And if you would like some vetted references of reputable company recommendations, please reach out.
Okay.
Okay?
Now, just one, who are you?
My name is Nicole Justice Green. I'm the Executive Director of Pride of Ticonderoga.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, okay. I can give you my card. I'll give you my card
Just want to
afterwards.
make sure you're.
There's a lot of things to question and be stressed about. That's not something,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
Yep.
Dan?
Mark, question about the wells. Say we get, you're saying that there's possibilities with federal or state funding. One well for how many houses?
It depends. Some can share, some may have a single well, depends on the project.
What if you get into a region of locations where you can't get adequate water?
Filtration.
Meet wells. Right now, I think all the properties, except some of the ones at the very end of Eagle Lake, which may have to get it from the lake itself, they have the capability to either share or get water on their own property.
Well, AES has already mapped that all out,
It's all mapped.
who's available.
Do they come to your property and talk to you when they're doing this?
They have
There
been.
was a
Because nobody's come in my area at all.
Nobody's been in my
There was a
area.
survey team up there. They didn't necessarily go to each property because they went to the ones where they needed information.
I have one of the biggest properties around some of the people that can't drill a well because of their septic.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they knock on my door?
I don't know why they did or didn't knock on your door. Like I said, some of them already had, some of
Well, I'm just saying, I
for some of
support
the
it, I
property,
support it.
for some of the properties, they already had the information they needed. Some of the other
Right,
ones they
right,
did
but
not.
no negativity, I support it. I'm just saying, I'm sure there's other neighbors up there with adequate space that would want to help people that can't drill.
Sure. I'm sure there are. But, you know, those type of negotiations are gonna happen between those neighbors.
Right,
That creates a whole host of problems. Multiple families or properties on one well. Now you gotta go and change your deed. Who's gonna pay for that? Who's gonna pay for that?
I don't know.
This,
It's not,
what was your name again, Nicole?
Yeah.
Nicole just said, he said something, he goes, how do we treat that? She said filtration. You said you don't even wanna entertain filtration.
no, what I said is the town
Personal
of Ticonderoga is
filtration.
not gonna go back to the
That's what I'm
COJ.
calling it.
Oh, I was just saying
Yes.
that the option would be
Personal.
each
The personal
resident
filtration is,
Right.
doing it.
that's what Nicole was just speaking about.
Just for the
The
few.
poets.
What is your question, Deanna?
It wasn't a question, it was a statement. I said, Nicole, she was just speaking, she's from, where are you from?
Pride of Ticonderoga, we're a rural preservation nonprofit. We assist local residents with their housing needs and housing emergencies. So we work in this field, but what I was specifically stating about personal filtration, there's no reason why the majority of the residents can't drill their own wells. The few that cannot can use the water from Eagle Lake, but they would need to install personal filtration systems for their homes, which is significantly cheaper than drilling a well.
What's the difference between a personal filtration system from using lake water and gooseneck pond?
Gooseneck Pond is going to be shut down in 2025.
But you haven't renegotiated it.
There will be no, I'm not gonna keep repeating this tonight. The town of Ticonderoga is not going back to the Department of Justice because they will tell us, once again, what is your method of compliance?
To tell them personal filtration,
You don't know.
right?
There's not, but that's not
That is not-
federally
If it's
regulated.
the
That is not a
municipal
process.
Oh, the
That's-
point of
Can't be
entry
federal-
treatment, it can be the point of entry
regulated.
treatment.
We've been through all this of what things were required of gooseneck to bring them to compliance. And just filtration at the personal level is not one of them.
We can have a discussion.
No, we are not.
At a different, well, I'm not gonna have a discussion with you, but I'm gonna have a discussion with other people.
That's fine.
But you can do the poets, the point of entry treatment systems. Other municipalities have them.
Why can't
We'll-
we
we'll-
sign a
we'll-
waiver
We're not gonna have a discussion,
So you
remember?
don't really have any.
I do have the
You're just
information, but
throwing
I don't.
that out.
I have a stack of papers, Mark, if you'd like to meet with me,
No.
I will come and I will meet with you, and I'll show you everything I have. But there is other municipalities that have that and do allow it,
So you really need.
and there is state agencies, the Environmental Facilities Corp.
You're not a district.
I understand that, I'm talking,
Well,
I'm
I
trying
can't
to
allow
help.
something that I don't have any control over.
See, I'm trying to help you to renegotiate, and all you have to do is tell your attorney to do it. He's waiting for the town board to say, hey, help these people.
Well,
And
he's-
you're saying, no, I'm not gonna help these
We
people.
are not gonna go
Dave,
back to
would you
the
be willing to help renegotiate?
No,
The board has already made a decision on this.
yeah, I've gone over it with Matt, we've all gone over this. It's not gonna do any good to renegotiate, they're gonna come back and say what Mark just told you for the past half hour.
We don't know that for sure.
Right.
Until you try to negotiate.
Because it all comes back to
Sure, Dave.
compliance.
Until you try, you don't know for sure they're gonna say no. That's a fact, but without trying, you're telling everybody in here that they're not worth it. 700
No,
people
you're
aren't
telling
worth it.
everyone in here they're not worth it. I
That's
never said
true. I am telling that, and they agree with
that.
me.
Yeah, we're done. In the back.
Oh my God.
I wish I had asked my question 20 minutes ago.
Then you do.
Anyway, two quick things. One on the EMS. The attorney earlier said that he estimated that it would be about $50 per ratepayer.
Right.
If that's the case, why don't we just charge everybody $50 per household and not have to worry about property tax? That's just, if it's truly only gonna be $50, I'm sure everybody would be happy to have EMS for $50. So, that's what I'm asking. Secondly, I happen to live on Alexandria Ave, and there's a lot of traffic there, high traffic with a lot of speeding. And I think town police have been trying to do a good job of catching people or getting the slow down. But you mentioned earlier about Chilson. We need some signs that say that it's 30 miles an hour. I know there's one way up by the school, but you get down to Baldwin, Lord Howe, and everybody coming up out of the village,
Yeah.
it's floor it, just floor it, and they know nobody's gonna catch them, so they go 40, 50 miles an hour. And there's a lot of kids walking on that road. There's a lot of people, kids from the school do their running,
Yeah.
people using the park. All I'm asking is that the town request the county to put up a couple more 30-mile-an-hour speed limit signs.
It's a town road until you get to the bridge, I believe.
From the bridge
It
on.
turns into county.
When you get to Alexandria Bridge, so.
Yeah,
Are
but
you
my
talking
question is,
about the section past the bridge towards the
Towards the school?
school? The section before that?
yeah, I'm talking about from the bridge towards the school.
Okay, yeah, that's county.
But I realize that it's county road, but if I went to the county and asked them to do something, they're not gonna
Yeah.
listen to me, they're gonna listen to the town better, I think.
Yeah, we do.
Absolutely.
So that's all I had.
We
Thanks.
could probably go back and see what it takes to get some additional signage. I know there's one right after you go past Lord Howe, but he's right, I don't think there's anything much past that point.
Yeah.
Well, related to that, because of the work being done on the bridge,
Yeah,
I know that there's been a traffic assessment. There was a company that came and did traffic assessment to see how many cars went by per day and what time of day and stuff. So some of that information is probably available somewhere, but it's not available to me, but it's probably available to the town.
yeah, well, the county definitely has it. As you said, they're getting ready to do that bridge construction, so I'm pretty sure they've measured traffic. Okay. All right, yeah, Dan.
Mark, with the closing of Gooseneck, let's jump ahead to 26. Everything's taken care of. There's wells downtown supplying, half the town. You still have Lake George feeding the other half of town. What will happen if more and more people start getting more saltwater-based softeners? And can we afford a desalinizer? And can we afford the heavy repairs on the plant, the water treatment plant? And what about the landfill that's next to IP out there that's been used, and possibilities of that leaching into those two wells, that aquifer? There is possibilities, from what I understand, that could spoil those two wells.
Well, from
Now,
the
we're signed
information-
off on gooseneck, where do we get our water next?
From the information I heard, that supposedly came from hydrologists, that was not a potential for that seepage into the well system from that part of, you know.
How,
that other side.
exactly how far away is it?
I don't have that information. It was due to the geography and the formations under the earth, not just distance.
What about the price of a desalinizer?
You know, that's come up before. It's expensive, and then you have to figure out, you know, how you're gonna take the effluent from that, what you're gonna do with that. But again, I believe from what I was hearing, that only would cut the hardness of the water like by 50%. And you still have to have some sort of in-home.
No, I'm talking about desalinizer next to the water treatment plant, removing the salt before it goes into the
Oh, for the
plant
salt.
and into Lake Champlain.
Well, I suppose that's possible, but again, who's gonna pay for, I mean, the water use.
So DEC and the DOH, Department of Justice, they have no problem with salt flowing into Champlain?
I'm sure they have restrictions and requirements. It's, as I said before though, the plant is tested for what it's kicking out in the waterways.
Okay, it's tested for the salt, the liquid going out.
They test for a number of things. I don't
What are
have,
those numbers? What are those
I
numbers?
don't have the list of what those are. That would
Mark,
have to come from the water department.
Matt is shaking his head no.
No, TDS is not part of the town's species permit. The town's not regulated for salt.
Okay.
My issue is you got Lake George Association and Lake Champlain Association working very, very hard from keeping road salt away from rivers and streams, and here we are just dumping it in Lake Champlain.
Well, we're not just dumping anything right now as far as.
Well, there's a ton in one business going in a month. And I mean, if you get more and more people on softeners, which you'll absolutely have to, we know how hard the water is, you're gonna have more and more salt.
Potential, yeah.
So losing gooseneck, federal government should bail us out and put a salinizer in, right? I mean, is that what we could be looking at down the road because we're being forced into this?
Well, that falls under the topic of unfunded mandates. The reason we're losing gooseneck is because of one of those. You know,
Right.
you can't use it and we're not gonna give you the money to fix it. That's pretty common with the federal government and state government. This would be the same kind of situation. Just because they put a requirement on you doesn't mean they're gonna give you the money to make that requirement possible.
But this isn't an unfunded mandate, this is something that should have been foreseen when we were going back, when we knew there was a problem, going down the road, when it was first identified with those wells, the water was hard. It should have been foreseen that they're gonna use softeners, it's gonna be salt. How are we gonna fund that? So now you created a bigger problem than trying to correct. I think Joyce, you're shaking your head, yes, you're
Well, I'm not
already doing
shaking my head, yes. It happened
creating
before our
a
time,
bigger-
and you're beating us up about it.
No, I'm saying, this should have been foreseen, that with these wells, and the salt and the hardness, they're putting the salt into it to soften the water. So now it's creating more of a problem. I mean, you have to look at that issue now too.
Yeah, but you obviously realize we can't go back in time and change.
I'm talking about the issue with the salt going into the chute, with more and more people on the wells, and what Dan's saying, if you're getting rid of gooseneck, you're gonna have more salt. Did you look at that issue to how to treat that with a salinizer in it? I mean, how much money is that gonna cost?
40
And what's the-
million, that's
And
for a
what's the
small
plan
one.
going forward? How are you gonna
It's
solve
about 40
that
million
problem?
for a small one. They go anywhere from 40 to 400 million, depending on your use value.
Or what? I didn't hear you.
Desalinizer, yeah, they're expensive. And then you got a lot of tractor trailer trucks coming in with dump trucks, they gotta haul the salt somewhere.
Yeah,
That's another
it's an
expense.
expensive process.
I mean,
But
that's.
you don't count on the federal government or the state government to give you the money for that.
But that's something that should be looked at now, before it gets to another point
I
where
don't disagree with that.
that it's gonna be out of control again with the price.
is it possible for the people to just try to appeal it? What is the worst scenario?
And we're not gonna go with that.
What is the worst scenario?
We've discussed that. We will be right back.
At least you can come back here and say to the people, listen, we tried, we appealed it.
I think you're missing the point is that if you go back and they say, yes, you can use gooseneck,
Right,
but this is what you have to do to be able to use gooseneck.
Okay,
Right? And
we're
that
willing
we
for
know
that.
is about, even though nobody believes it, it's a $35 million process. That's why we are here today. So the fact is if you go back to the state and they come back and say, hey, no problem, you want to use gooseneck, bring it into compliance. And then how much is that going to cost? We've had that evaluation done. Was $35 million years ago, probably 50 now.
there's only one more thing that put us in compliance.
It's filtration.
No,
That is,
it's not
it's
correct.
not just filtration. It's filtration, it's the dam,
And
it's the
we
pipe.
are-
But dam's already covered by the state,
It's not covered by the state.
it most certainly is.
It's-
But Tom, if you give them a plan, it doesn't have to be done tomorrow.
It
could be
doesn't.
over a period of 4 or
It
5
has to be
years.
done by 2025.
Well, wait a minute, if you renegotiate, what did you miss, Mr. Wright? We
I'm asking the
renegotiate.
same question of you, Frank.
I'm
What
telling
did
you,
miss?
give him the authority to renegotiate and talk to the state about this. We'll look at trying to repair it over a longer period of
This
time.
board has decided that is not what's going to happen because they will tell us to bring it into compliance.
But yes, but you don't know what it's gonna cost us. You don't know
Yes,
what
we
they're going
do.
to. They may give you a variance for 3 years, Mark, where we can fix it in a period of time. You're not trying. People, he's not trying.
That's pure speculation, and there is absolutely no basis in fact for that particular comment and for us to assume that that's going to happen. What's going to happen is, we could go to the state, go to the DOH, renegotiate the deal, and they're going to come back and say, okay, fine, we'll let you do that. Now you got to bring this into compliance. And you got to do it by 2025 because that was the original mandate.
That date is not changing.
And that date's not gonna change. And the fact is, we know it's too expensive. That's why we are here today. That's why we drilled wells in the first place. And the other piece of the puzzle that I think is overlooked, tremendous amount, is that gooseneck alone will not supply the entire town of Ticonderoga, nor will Baldwin Road, right? So they only supply, if they were both fully operational, to supply about half the town each, right? If one fails, then half the town's out of water, right? And let me finish.
Yeah, okay.
Baldwin Road is gonna need to be replaced or abandoned at some point because it is past its useful life by many, many years, is being held together by Band-Aids. It's costing the town $100,000+ a year to maintain that facility, and there's a point that's gonna come that we're gonna need to go to a single source supply, and the only single source supply right now that generates enough volume of water are the wells. And so, yes, the entire town of Ticonderoga is gonna have to be supplied by wells because otherwise you're gonna have two antiquated systems, one at Gooseneck, one at Baldwin Road. They're gonna die, and we've already paid for the wells. So even if you go back and renegotiate it, and some magic happened with Gooseneck, the town is still burdened with the debt that they've incurred to put those wells in. That's not gonna change.
But if there was a mistake made, it needs to be owned up to and fixed.
I don't think there was a mistake made. If there was any mistake at all, it was in a lack of communication at the time to notify the homeowners about how hard the water was. That's a mistake, probably. That was before my time. It was a failure to communicate the potential hardness of that water back in the day. There was no mistake made, in my opinion, and even though the decision was made before I became on the town board, to put in the wells, because it fixes many long-term solutions to problems that are going to occur with this town, so that we have a source that can supply water to the entire town, because Baldwin Road's going away at some point in time. So Gooseneck would only fix half the problem. And then you'd still have to supply the other half of the town because Lake George water is going to stop.
There was a document that said one well was going to be used for emergency backup. Leanna, you and I have seen that.
2015 and
Right.
2018,
One
DOH said the
emergency
wells
backup.
were too hard.
And in that period, whatever that emergency was going to be, I don't know, to repair gooseneck, whatever. All I'm saying is this, repairs could have been made over the last 2 or 3 years to start to get us into compliance on gooseneck if somebody had taken the initiative. It didn't happen. Now, this is where we are right now, okay? And all we're saying is this, Tom, and I'm not trying to be a nasty guy, I'm just telling like it is we need to show the people that we're at least going to see what it would really cost us in the end to give them the water they want. That's all we have to do.
We
That's all
know
it is.
the cost.
We know what that cost is.
We don't.
Yes.
We don't.
Let me explain why. Let me
We
explain
know
why.
the cost, and we are not gonna debate it again. We have debated this all year, what that cost was. We had experts come in. You were supposed to bring experts in to show us what the cost was. Everything you brought forward was refuted by the Department of Health, the AES engineering, and the legal experts. None of your solutions, in part or in total, solve the problem. We know what the cost is. It's not changing, and a matter of fact, it has increased over time. We are not going back. We are not going to rediscuss this cost.
It doesn't
We are
have to
not
go
going
all
back
at
to
once.
the DOJ and ask them for anything more, because they're going to still ask us to become compliant, and we cannot afford to become compliant. We are wasting each other's time. We are gaining no ground here.
Well, that will, if
A
you.
period of
if-
time.
well,
No, go ahead.
So if you go back and renegotiate gooseneck, that is soft water which could augment
Did you
the
just not
well water.
understand what I just said?
I understand.
Then why are you
But
pursuing
it
Then
would
why are you pursuing
augment
this?
the hardness and the water, thereby reducing the amount of salt that people are putting in to soften the water, and you would probably not need to spend that money years down the road for the desalinizer.
We
It would save you money, because it's gonna cost you more money for a desalinizer than it is to put filtration in and bring gooseneck into compliance.
But we cannot bring gooseneck into compliance to even start this process. It's too expensive.
But it's gonna be more expensive to try to get a
Maybe,
desalinizer.
but right now, we can't do anything about gooseneck. It is too expensive. So your whole premise is based upon that foundation, and we can't move forward with that because it's not cost effective.
Why
Well,
don't you
neither
try?
is a desalinizer.
Frank, you can just wave your arm all night and say, why don't you try, why don't you try, why don't you try? But it simply comes back to the fact that the DOJ is gonna still ask us to be in compliance by the date that they provided.
We agree with that. We agree they want you to be in compliance. What we're saying is, Mark, you can give them some kind of a plan. So you say we're supposed to be down by 2025. Maybe, because of all the problems this caused with the people, they'll give you 2 more years and we can do it over a longer period of time. You don't know because you're not willing to try, Mark. You don't know because you won't try. All these people, 700 people on those petitions, and you're not willing to try. It'd be better for you if you'd at least try. And everybody here, try. Give it a shot. What do you got to lose? Some letters from the lawyer. You're already paying the lawyer anyway. Get some letters from the lawyer to go in and find out. We're paying them anyway, let's try it and let's find out. If we see something on paper that says, no way, well then we're cooked.
The decision's already been made by the
And
board.
part of the project has already been done. You already have a covered reservoir down there, down Justin. The storage tank, the reservoir, you're not even using that. Put a check next to that box. Part of this has been done. So your $30 million project just went from here down to here.
No, it has not.
Have you revisited it?
It has been looked at. The thing is that the $30 to $35 million estimate was done 5 years ago, 6 maybe, at
It was
this point in time.
2020 when they.
By one
AES
engineer.
brought it. By one engineer.
You need 3 of them.
2020, I
You
was.
need 3, you gotta give them the fight.
Right.
You gotta get the lower price.
From 2020, it was during the pandemic, AES brought that up to the residents
That
of the
was
Chilton
an $8
Pavilion.
million project to put water up the hill. The project to redo Gooseneck was done back before, if I'm not mistaken, right in here somewhere.
17 or 18.
Yeah, 17 or 18.
I think it was 18.
Before, and that's what drove that cost estimate, the $35 million, which was done 6 years ago at this point, is what prompted the town to say that's too expensive for the town taxpayers to incorporate. So instead, they spent $8 million to drill wells. That was the cost analysis that was done at the time. And for us to go back, you still have spent the money on the wells. The town community's still going to incorporate that debt. They still have that debt. And you're going to burden them with another, at this point, maybe 40, 45, maybe $50 million to do what you want to do in Gooseneck. And even if you spread it over 10 years, you're talking $4.5 to $5 million a year. That's a lot per taxpayer. It's not economically feasible, and that's why this town board has decided we're not moving forward. End of story.
Well,
So you're
why
giving
won't
them
you
wells
do
and
it?
you're giving them water that the people aren't happy with. So we're not gonna look, we're
There's
just.
a lot of
engineering
people,
wells.
you know, there's a lot of people that claim a lot of people say they don't like the water. A lot of people say they like water. Honestly, hard water is as far as taste is concerned, is an acquired taste. It's like drinking scotch. You either like it or you don't, right? And I mean, that's just the way it is. Some people like hard water. They like showering in it. Some people can't stand soft water because it makes them feel slimy, right? So it's a personal taste. There is absolutely nothing out there that says whether or not, and that's why hard water is not regulated by the state as far as what's mandated, because there's nothing out there that says it's good for you or it's bad for you. It's just not regulated.
Well, we know
As
they
far
make
as
their
the-
own rules, we know that.
Okay, so it's not in the rules. That's why it's
Rules
not.
only accommodate them, not the people.
So it's not something that has to be measured for.
Matt,
So,
is there any chloride going into Lake Champlain? Are we testing for chloride?
For,
Salt?
So,
no,
They're not testing it?
no,
Why not?
it's not part of the speedies permit.
So we shouldn't be concerned about the salt going into our waterways.
You asked me two different questions.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're concerned,
Should we be concerned about it?
that's your question.
No, I wanna know, should we be concerned about
That's
it?
not a legal question.
You don't live here, it wouldn't matter to you anyways, right?
Really?
Oh,
Do you think
no,
we should be
seriously.
concerned
Come
about
on.
it?
All right, we're,
You
know,
advise
we-
the
Okay, that's
town, you should
right.
tell them they should be.
Are you drinking Lake George on the other end?
What's that?
Matt, you're the attorney, you should be
I drink city
concerned
water.
about
Talk water.
your work.
So the question is, should we be concerned about it? That's the.
Chloride, can we test it? Can we just test it and find out how much chloride's going in?
Anything.
So we can report it to DEC and the DOH and say, hey, we got a big problem. Gooseneck's not lost yet. You wanna help us now?
You know, all these suggestions that you guys have got tonight, anybody consulted an engineer and actually come up with, I mean, these are all your personal opinions, do this.
This is
do
a
that.
town affair, I
Do
think
this.
it's a town should
We
take
brought
this.
that to you at
The
the
town
March
has already
17th
done it.
Did you ever,
The
do you
March
have any
17th
documentation to back up what
The
you're
March
talking about?
17th meeting,
The
we
salt?
brought all this to
That'll
you.
work.
no, you didn't.
You mean the salt, Dave?
You didn't come in with a stamp
You talking about
date.
the salt?
We don't have to submit a drawing to you.
We're talking about
This is a-
redoing gooseneck.
We don't have to submit anything to you. You should be putting us in compliance.
We already did.
No, you didn't.
Maureen, I did talk to Maureen several times, 45 minutes one day on the phone up in Saranac Lake. And she told me that if you guys want to renegotiate and try to work things out, call them back, get them down here again, have another informative meeting.
All right, we have repeated this at least 5 times. We are done repeating this. Are there any other questions from the public on something else?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the frustration is coming out because there's 109 people that have been suffering through seeing the town hire 2 engineering firms at great cost with no results for us. Having to, budget $17,000 to $20,000 if you're drilling a well, where you may or may not get water. One of my neighbors went down 505 feet. That's on an expensive well. Their neighbor went down, I don't know how many hundreds of feet, never got water. So, does that make us nervous if we said we wanted to drill a well? Absolutely.
Sure.
Right now, I mean, water freezes in the winter. We have to, bring up our own water if we're staying at Eagle Lake. We can't drink the water that's there for medical reasons. So we're paying a lot of money right now for water that we can't drink. We do cook with it, we do shower, it's great for that. You can boil it and whatever. And then our rates go up $64 a year, which $64 in the scheme of things isn't much, but just the fact that there's one more dart thrown at that dartboard for people that are frustrated that there wasn't a better solution. And I appreciate the fact that, and I don't live here, so full-time, but I appreciate the fact that the town has spent a lot of money on 2 engineering firms that had we known way back then, probably taken that pot of money and drilled a well for all of us. I realize we can't turn the clock backwards, and I don't want to, not on this issue. So, I think we just got, we have to move forward and put the best foot forward. And, you know, not all of us can, you know, get water out of Eagle Lake. That also makes me nervous because in a year like this, the lake was very low. And we run the risk again of no water. We run the risk of Eagle Lake becoming a non-motorized lake. And that goes to the enjoyment of tourists who come to the area and they spend money here. They spend money at the town restaurants and whatnot. So I just think there's a lot of frustrations, there's a lot of balls juggling in the air. But I personally think of revisiting Gooseneck, as much as I love that water, I just don't think it's a viable option. I don't know what the APA has in store for Gooseneck once we shut it down. I understand the pipes are so deep, there's still gonna be water coming out of there. But I personally, this is just my opinion, I have no fact whatever to back it up. I just think it's in the APA's plan to make it forever wild, and they want us out of there.
I think they would like every town that's in the park out of here.
Yes, on that we agree, yes. So,
Right.
John, on that note,
Right. You sat here and running your mouth, Mark, about the budget and everything.
I'm running my mouth because I know what I'm
Let me
saying.
finish.
Go ahead.
Don't start on me.
No, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I'm just telling you, that's not just him, that's a whole board decision that we did.
Right.
You know how many hours that we put in on that budget? Why don't you take that budget and go over it line by line, and then come back and tell us why it would be any different, no matter who's sitting in these seats?
Well, okay, let me give you the answer. First of
I don't
all,
want an answer from you, I've heard enough
you
from
just
you.
asked a question. You want me to give you my answer to that?
No, I want you to go over the budget first, and then come back and tell me.
I've gone over the budget. I see wasteful spending.
You haven't gone over it.
Oh, my God.
You're just running your mouth.
I'm not running my mouth. I know more about budget than this guy will ever know. Okay, I dealt with school districts and all, I know. And you guys have wasted.
We all know, Frank, you're really amazing. You're an amazing person.
I am.
It's getting very contentious here.
I know what I'm talking
I
about.
can do the same thing. I can look at that budget. I have budgeting experience. I can look at that budget and say, why is this getting a 20% raise? I'm talking to Dave.
Yeah, I know, and I'm telling you.
20% raise in the budget, this person is getting a percent. It's not equal.
We
I
went
know
over every one of them. Why didn't you come to the budget meeting?
Because I can't come to a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, I don't know if that's why I'm high, or, I do want to ask you a question, Dave.
You wouldn't want my input, Dave, because I know what I'm talking about, and you don't.
Do you want to hear from Richard how he hear from my house?
Sure we can. How are you? Good. How are you doing? Excuse me, if you have a conversation, take it outside, this meeting's still on.
No, you just ended it.
No, I did not.
You did, you said it's
I
over.
ended your conversation, it's not in this meeting.
You don't end my conversation.
I'm certainly doing this.
Oh, no, you don't.
If you're gonna have to, you wanna talk about
I did
something.
Right, you got it right. So, Mark, are you gonna be around?
I'll be down here.
Here?
Well, early in the morning.
I'm gonna come see Tanya tomorrow, so I do want to see you about something.
I'll send you.
He goes, this conversation's ended.
Could you please carry your conversation sitting down here down the hall?
And then cut this budget down next time. Get up.
Please carry your conversations into the hall unless you're still part of the meeting.
Bridget, would you like to come up and say anything?
Welcome, I would love to.
If you dare.
Sorry.
Careful, it's a dangerous
No
area.
problem.
Welcome to town government.
Thank you.
Did you write all that down?
No, I can't write all that crap.
I know.
There's no way I can do that.
Sounds good.
So what you got on type?
Well, I'm here for the easement, the National Grid easement, that's between National Grid and the town.
She's with the solar project on top.
Yes. Sorry, yes, I'm the developer for the Ticonderoga solar project. So the easement that we have shared with you, I have extra copies.
You're talking about it, the industrial park.
No,
No.
over on Charbonneau Road.
Sorry, Charbonneau Road. And I think the.
You already did the one
sketch
in Commerce.
in on the last page of this, I think that's helpful.
You've got 6 of them that are gonna probably come out.
We've already set the precedent.
Because it shows the parcel that's in question. So this specific
this one.
easement is
You don't really.
not on our project site.
Yeah.
So this one is for what they call make break work. And it's essentially the lines from the substation to the.
Can I close
project
this
site
door?
that needs to be
Thanks for
upgraded.
coming. Oh, yeah.
And this is to do that work. So there's a new pole that needs to be added and it's on town property. So the easement would be for the addition of that pole along with 2 guy wires that are proposed and then maintenance of that.
We have the easement, and we have actually the pilot and the easement, I believe.
Yeah.
But you're still reviewing that.
Yeah, the pilot, I think it's already signed.
The one for New York 1 was signed.
Pivot one was
signed.
signed and gone over, that's what's done.
The pilot just came, the pilot just came.
Oh, no, are you talking about the side agreement?
That was also for Pivot New York 1.
Yeah.
But this one for
Jody
Ticonderoga,
handles the pilot.
yes, for this one from Ticonderoga, we just got it from Jody, the pilot. I think I sent it to you. And then we also just got the easement.
Yeah.
For Ticonderoga.
So I haven't been able to look in detail at the difference of the plan, but where this one differs, if at all, from the one the town board just approved, because we can send the prior developer that was in here with pivot.
Yes,
Yeah, that's Gordon.
it's hard to keep track, yeah. It's Gordon.
I don't know what the encroachment was for that, but that easement was $9,500 is what they paid as a side agreement. Even though the easement is with National Grid in the town, the developer pays the cost for the easement because National Grid's not gonna pay it. Here, I don't know what the difference is, it strikes me as a bit more of an encroachment. I think that one was just in the town's right of way. So you'll have to take that into consideration. Usually, the town looks to the developer to make an offer. All that info is public information, so we can send you an email with what
That'd be wonderful.
literally just resolved it today.
Okay.
That cost.
Is that a one-time cost?
Yeah.
One time.
Yeah, it's like buying a deed or, buying property. They bought an easement. And again, because while it is National Grid, it's the developer's property.
Right.
So National Grid's not gonna pay for it.
So what we did tonight is we approved an easement based upon whatever Matt ends up coming back with.
But the price the developer offers.
The price is gonna be something similar.
Yeah, I don't dictate the price. That's-
Right.
We just gave the approval to have an easement. The rest is.
Yeah, we can send you that.
Yeah, that would be great, and then we'll come to you before.
What we asked them to do is go around and give comparable easements that they've done and what they paid for it. So that's what they did. They went around, gave the numbers that were paid for certain easements, and then they offered something right here, actually. But again, I can't remember the extent of what that equivalent is for that.
Okay.
So I just take that into account
Yeah.
and what you propose for the cost.
Yeah, absolutely do that. And then on the pilot front, I know that's coming from the IDA, so we have executed the pilot on our side, and Jody was coordinating with the town council.
Yeah, once we go through the pilot, I'll sign it, I'll give it back to Jody and she'll transfer it
Okay.
at this point.
Wonderful.
Sorry I had to wait so long. Such a short answer.
Have you enjoyed it, Toby?
It was interesting.
This is like the Real Housewives of New York City.
If you have a long drive back, you'll be very alert.
Yes, I did.
Just use the nice one.
It's not wrong.
Unfortunately.
All right, well, thank you all so much.
Sure.
Thank you, Brenda.
And
I
then
think I have your email, I can forward that.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
If not,
Don't open your.
No.
if not, we're adjourned at 20:35.
I agree.
Same.
I wish I
Really
did.
trying to quit.
I think it's pretty stop.